Chapter 126. This hand is also the means he learned from the government of Street Fangunsa. Simply put, it is to use its own strength to condense a contract, and the above regulations are set by themselves, which are used to stipulate the things that both parties need to perform. Then make some changes through their unbreakable oath, and as a result, Anson's unique contract appeared. It's easy to use and simple, but not everyone can break free from it. And the only thing Anson needs to do on this contract that acts on witch heart demons is to introduce himself. My name is Anson, Pendra. Ken grinned. Praise to Mephisto. The witch heart demon trembled. Even the few demons he brought who were paralyzed by the evil spirit knight were stunned, and the demons were given by the means they were accustomed to. Playing. Finish? What made the witch heart demon angry was that the contract also stipulated that he must go back to hell. Hell. Do you know how much strength he wasted 473 to get rid of Mephisto and come to Earth? Now you actually want him to go back to sent to death? You scumbag. Anson reached out and gestured to his lips. SHH. Attention. The contract stipulates that you can't insult me, otherwise, you should feel it by now. Yes, the kind of power that acts on your soul. It's beautiful, isn't it? Pain, an indescribable pain that appeared in his soul when he wanted to insult Anson. Satan is on top. Who is the devil? What do you want to break this contract? Tell me everything about hell, and give me eyes in hell in the future. Talk about them one by one. The witch heart demon was eventually pulled away by the power of the contract, but it was not Anson's power. His power only played a leading role in it. On the contrary, it is the power of hell that pulls and uses the power of witch hearts and demons. Thanks to the rules in his body. Turning his head to look at several demons to the side, he raised his wand. Avada nibbles on a big melon. Vanish. The soul is indeed the most mysterious one in the mysterious side, but it is also the most fragile one. Turning his head slightly, Anson frowned slightly. Your Excellency Mephisto, since you are here, why don't you come out and talk? Well, and the ancient mage. The two came out of the space, making Anson envious. Mephisto looked very gentleman in a decent suit and a stick engraved with a skeleton in his hand, but those eyes seemed to be distorting everything, as if it can devour everything. Koichi. Mephisto. Mephisto turned his head, and Anson's performance was in his eyes the whole time, especially from the contract he left behind. He actually learned and made new things. Very unique. It seems to be something unique to another dimension. Is that a whole new power, wizard? Young dimensional lord, it seems that the evil spirit knight has interested you. Yes, your excellency. But I'm more curious about what he wants to do on Earth. You know, I spend most of my time on Earth. Furuichi smiled and slapped his little fan, ignoring it at all. Anson, anyway, it can't be for those souls, can it? Mephisto nodded but did not say directly, but took out a piece of parchment. Let's make a deal. The devil's deal? Most people have a certain misunderstanding of our contract. In fact, the devil's contract is the most sacred, and often we will strictly enforce it to fulfill everything that the person who signed the covenant requires. For example, Johnny the Ghost Rider, who signed a contract with Mephisto to cure his father's cancer. The result was indeed cured, but his father died in other disasters. It's ironic. Demons are more like extraordinary powers in human games, and apart from those bad tastes, they do everything stipulated in the contract. Anson is familiar with this. Isn't it to be and stand again, familiar with the door? But a demon who says evil things so holy, it seems that he really has something to learn, at least more shamelessly. The contract doesn't have to. A trace of pity flashed on Mephisto's face. That's really a pity. Your soul should be delicious. Then too, leave. The figure disappeared into the darkness. Anson, ancient mage, why don't we keep him? I could feel that he didn't seem to be very strong. Closing parenthesis. There is no need for Mage Anson. What came just now is just one of his doppelgangers, and he can send a lot of doppelgangers like this. To put it bluntly, killing such a doppelganger does not have much effect on Mephisto. Can demons bypass the restrictions of the secret mage to enter Earth? No, it is entering this dimension, Master Anson. The existence of demons, although evil, they also play a certain role in the operation of the universe. 0. The two sides of darkness? It can be understood that way. After smiling slightly, Yi Mage opened any door and left. Anson looked at the ghost knight who was frozen in the ground. What should this guy do? Moreover, he is still frozen by the power of the core of the icebox, and there is a powerful power in the air of his body but he cannot fully use it, which is somewhat sad. After thinking about it, he pulled out a piece of parchment again, and the wand slid on it to arrange the unbreakable oath and pull Anson's little power into it. Well, he has to help me when I need the Ghost Knight. When I command the Ghost Knight, he must do it unconditionally. The Ghost Knight must obey all the orders of Anson and Pendra. Well, Anson can see all the memories of the Ghost Rider. This one is good. Tut. Just 4. It seems that he is still very kind. So what do I have to pay? This is the trouble with this kind of contract. Both parties to the contract need to pay, just operable. For example, the person who wrote the contract. Let's introduce yourself. It's done. The wand knocked on the ice that sealed the evil spirit knight. Click. Human, you are guilty. As soon as the Ghost Knight stood up, A roar came out of the flaming skull. The flames in the eye sockets twisted. Anson closed his eyes and only relied on his real eyes to perceive everything in the outside world. The evil spirit knight was stunned. Can it still be like this? 2.1 No. He can also force you to open your eyes. Just about to come over. Anson's wand slammed over, and along with a part of the flame pulled from the evil spirit knight, he entered the core of the eternal fire. Huh? Anson was surprised. Can the eternal flame still be cultivated and grown like this? Trial? In that case, the wand kept banging, restraining the evil spirit knight until dawn. The weak Johnny opened his eyes and looked at Anson, who was crouching on the side. Johnny, make a deal. I'll help you break free from Mephisto's shackles on you. Didn't you always want this result? Hell, don't think I can't remember what happened last night. This time it was Anson's turn to be embarrassed. Well, people remember. Chapter 127. But, looking at Johnny, who had turned into a human to the side, the power of the evil spirit knight had been sucked dry by himself in an instant, and now he should not be able to change his body in the next few days, too. So, Johnny flew in. Syllable. One was grabbed by Anson, who took his hand and pressed it on the contract. No, struggle, no one will save you. Click. The hand just pressed on the contract. The contract immediately turned into two forces into the souls of the two. At the same time, Anson seems to have entered a sea of memories. And he knows the true purpose of the Ghost Knight being cast on Earth. It's really for him, eyes jealousy. Tiamu, a newborn group of celestial gods placed deep in the Earth's core. It should be noted here that because it is a relationship between the movie universe, the celestial god group and the celestial god race are not a species, and a go can be regarded as the celestial god race. And the Tenjin group is the kind of mechanical large-scale intelligent creature. Tiamu is one of the members of the celestial god group. 30 and his strength far exceeds that of the celestial god race, a go and the like. At first, Anson wanted to find Tiamu's organization to make wands. He casually dropped the Ghost Rider on the ground and called out to Holt to take him back. England. Spencer is still in charge of the construction of the building outside the passage into the Dark Elven world. After all, Anson's needs are a bit complicated and need to be taken slowly. Young master, what you asked me to check found out. God, I really haven't discovered that there are so many extraordinary powers in our world before. A complete piece of data was placed in front of Anson. Blade warrior, bloodsucker, werewolf. It seems that as Anson said, when some people shout that I am Iron Man, all cats and dogs run out. Oh, and the secret mage. It's okay, we're the dangerous kind for them. Spencer nodded. Don't you need to stare over there in Wakanda? There will be no trouble with the First Wizard Legion, and they dare not mess around. Mr. Spencer, you know, power is the perfect deterrent. By the way, did Princess Surua receive the nanotechnology given us? It has already been received, and the degree of scientific research in the family industry can be directly reproduced. But it takes some preparation time. Prepare before we return to the wizarding world. That is where we are fundamental. Understood. Spencer pointed to the data on the desktop. So do you need to pay attention to these? I mean whether you can get anything out of it. After all, they should have some good things after living so long. This one, there really is. Not to mention the Blade Warriors on Mika's side. The vampires and werewolves on Europa's side are now indistinguishable and have a deep relationship. Lift a photo from the folder. The angle was chosen very well. A woman in a black leather coat with a pale face and short hair, very handsome. Those who don't know thought it was a copy of Blade Warrior. But the person is a vampire sister. The mark on the chest is a mysterious sign of a family, and their appearance is in the records of the Pendra family, neither long nor short. Serena, Victor, interesting. Victor, a small local lord in the 6th century, later did not know why traces of his existence can be found in the intermittent history. It's just that the surname has changed, but the name Victor has always existed. I'll go and see. Oh yes, what are they doing with Wanda? It should be in the castle. You ordered. Don't move around outside, now many people are looking for us. Well, then let them come with me. It's still a long time before school starts, and it seems that they need to find some new fun. Every day. Yes, every day, Mr. Spencer. Somewhere in Europa? Mindy asked curiously. Are we really going to deal with vampires and werewolves this time? I mean crosses and garlic really work? Pietro interjected, and silver weapons. They wouldn't find it strange if these things appeared in the wizarding world. After all, even house elves had them. But this is the Marvel world. A few years ago, there was not even a single superpower other than the American team. Simply insane. Closing parenthesis useful. Vampires are afraid of the sun, to be precise. They are afraid of ultraviolet rays. Maybe garlic is also useful but not afraid of crosses. Werewolves are more special. Werewolves are afraid of silver weapons. And the same thing is that both have great strength and self-healing ability, but werewolves should be stronger. Wanda, so what are we? How did you come to the hospital? It is said that the origin of vampires in the Marvel world is very complicated, and there are many theories, such as that the vampires that Blade is dealing with now may not be the same vampires they know. Even the origin may be different. The vampires they are dealing with now come from the bloodline of Alexander and Corvinus, and are derived from a mysterious blood or gene. The same goes for werewolves. But the vampire that the Blade Warrior is dealing with is from Duke Dracula, who should be familiar to many people. And now the hospital they are going to has one of the direct descendants of Corvinus, Michael. His blood seems to be similar to that of the ancestor Corvinus. According to the pattern of the appearance of vampires and werewolves, the blood of this family seems to have absorbs foreign viruses and strengthens their own abilities. Therefore, the most important of this team should be the blood of Corvinus and his descendants. It is worth noting that Corvinus is still alive now. The hospital flew empty. The four came to Michael's house again and waited. At night, Michael, who was suddenly caught in the vampire's lair, came back with his tired body in panic, and he didn't wait for song 230 to breathe. I was surprised to find 4 small children sitting in my house. You are? Sorry, I'm afraid I don't have anything here for you to steal. Pietro walked over and looked up and down. It doesn't seem to be magical. Wanda, nonsense. Didn't you listen to Anson? His bloodline will only form new abilities when infected by foreign viruses. I smell blood, Mindy said suddenly. Pietro grabbed Michael and lifted his shirt. Bitten. Look at the marks, should be some kind of canine. Is it a werewolf? Michael broke free of Pietro's hand and asked with a puzzled expression, who are you? Is it the same as her? Serena, you know her? Hearing Anson say the name, Michael felt as if it made sense again. Moreover, there is some expectation faintly. The color worm is on the brain. This is? Suddenly, Anson turned his head and looked out the door. Pietro swooped out, leaving a string of after images in the air. Bang! The leather-clothed woman outside the door was startled, and just wanted to take out her pistol, but found that the man in front of her was holding 2 silver things in his hands. What is a gun that is not its own? Turn around and run immediately. But a crisp voice was heard. Serena, fly in. Chapter 128 Syllable. The neck was firmly grasped in Anson's hand, and the cold voice that just wanted to struggle came over. Miss Serena, I think it's good that you don't act trashly. The face is indifferent. Who are you? Werewolf? I remember that werewolves didn't seem to have such power. Anson let go of her hand and motioned for Pietro to return her weapon. Michael immediately stepped forward. Are you all right? After nodding, his eyes swept and frowned slightly. The 4 are all young people, looking no more than 12 years old. But how can they have this kind of power? Anson sat to himself. Make a deal. You take me to meet someone. Maybe I will provide you with a job in the future. Deal? Good. Deal. I don't have anything to trade with you, and besides, if I were you, I wouldn't stay here. Serena pulled Michael behind her. Her keen hearing already allowed her to hear movement from downstairs, heavy gasps and super-fast footsteps. There is only one thing that makes such a sound. A werewolf. Less than 3 breaths. Several werewolves roared and appeared in the doorway, and the saliva mucus they threw out could even be seen in their open mouths. Swish. Pietro turned into an afterimage and traveled the wolves to the opposite side. The silver dagger in his hand was already stained with blood, and on the other hand, there was a blood hole in each brain door of the werewolf, and the werewolf's body was festering. Until death. Serena was terrified in her heart. Fast. Too fast. Even she, the Death Walker among vampires, who specializes in killing werewolves, didn't have such speed. But she knew very well that the children in front of her were definitely not vampires and werewolves. How did it work? You, who? Wizard. Legendary wizard? Michael blurted out. Anyway, werewolves and vampires have appeared, and it doesn't seem strange to have another wizard. Serena shook her head directly. Impossible. I have never seen or heard of the existence of wizards in more than 1,000 years before. Anson shook his head. I'm not in the heart to talk to you about whether it exists or not. Deal? One raised. It gave her a sense of extreme danger. What deal? You vampires help me with things. I'll give you a different environment to live in, and of course, I'll make sure your life won't be disturbed by humans or werewolves. I can't be the master, but I can take you back to find someone who can really be the master. Wise choice, Anson said with a slight smile as he stood up. To be honest, all the protagonists' such existences Anson does not want to touch. They are undoubtedly synonymous with trouble, and most of them have their own unique naivety and too idealistic thinking. If it weren't for the existence of the protagonist Sora, I'm afraid I don't know how many times he died. A quaint castle side. Ticking rain sprinkled on umbrellas. Interesting. It seems that you vampires are doing well. This place seems to be owned by a pharmaceutical company if I remember correctly. Serena stepped aside and shouted to open the door. Bang. Inside, a group of vampires were already stunned. Serena first brought back a human, and now brought 4 human children back. What do you want to do? Especially Levin, who is now a vampire ranking official. After nodding with wonder, the 4 followed Serena into the castle. Quaint and full of historical objects, perhaps a vampire's preference. Everywhere is either red or black. Even the light is very dark. Candles are shining dappled with light. Inside, the vampires were human in a dress in magenta liquid. Sniffed. It should be blood. Each person has a cup, and some even raise a glass to the 4 people, and the A's are more of the feeling of examining the prey. Craven led a group of people upstairs and downstairs, dressed in black, and the people behind him were holding automatic weapons. Serena, what the hell are you doing? What place are you here? A playground for humans? Full of anger. Serena, he has a deal to talk to you, and he's dangerous. After speaking, he pulled Michael to the side corner. Craven showed his fangs. 2, as if to scare Anson. Anson's leisurely eyes made him very disliked. "This is the first time I've heard of humans trying to make a deal with our vampires, Buffy." Closing parenthesis ha ha ha. Anson glanced sideways at all the vampires, arrogant, and also a suicide weapon. "Raise your wand." Bright as day, sunshine. The supposedly dim castle was instantly illuminated by the sunlight emitted from Anson's wand, and all vampires within the range of Anson's wand disappeared like flying ash. Weak, pitiful. This was Anson's first feeling. In an instant, dozens of vampires went to meet their ancestors. Serena's hands were shaking. Anson even trembled a little when she looked over. "Never seen such power. I don't have the time or interest to play these plays with you. Now, take me to Victor." Of course. Anson turned around. "Wanda, you purge the vampires in the castle. They may need a chance to re-identify themselves to be obedient." "Got it." Every scream that comes from walking must represent the death of a vampire, and it has been their vampires who have been hunting werewolves for more than 1,000 years. The power of vampires has been imprinted in the minds of all vampires, and today, they have encountered people they cannot understand and cannot fight. "Sorcerer?" Michael's eyes signaled Serena to run. There was a wry smile in my heart. According to the mysterious wizard's methods just now, her speed could not be faster than light. "How long can vampires last in the sun?" The answer is 3 seconds. She had seen how the vampire who had been executed died, burned into a pile of black charcoal by the sun, and, Zhao was miserable. "Underground space." Serena pointed to the 3 patterns in the space. "Below is the coffin of the 3 elders, and it takes a lot of blood to wake them up." Anson went straight to the only stone chair not far away and sat down. Very majestic shape, should be the chair of important people. "Wake them up and don't think about running." "Yes, sir." Pulled Michael to the warehouse to get artificial blood, and after some twists and turns, he finally woke up Victor. The withered skin is no different from a dead body except for those eyes. "Mage?" Now it was Anson's turn to be surprised. "You know, you used to hunt us down before. Remember it very well. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have been hiding underground." Xin. Victor gasped. "So, Your Excellency, Great Mage, what can I do for you?" Chapter 129. Victor's actions made Anson a little unsure of what to say. Karma Taj's secret mage seemed to impress vampires before. Even Victor, one of the vampire high-level elders, did not dare to explode when he saw him. "Only, what about the nobility and dignity of your vampires?" "That coffin down there is Marcus. There were originally 3 coffins here, one of which was Elder Amelia, who was currently active outside, but would be returning soon." The vampire hierarchy implements a policy of 3 elders ruling in turn. "Yes, Your Excellency, this is Marcus." "Do you know his father?" Victor lowered his head. "Your Excellency, Marcus has told us about the Corvinus family, but Marcus seems to have a very good opinion of him." "Know where he is?" Anson paused, and it seemed that Serena had banished a vampire and that vampire was connected to Corvinus, the father of the vampire's ancestor. "Miss Serena." "Your Excellency, I wonder where the vampire historian you banished 300 years ago is now? Do you need him in exile?" "Yes." "I guess you won't let me down 063, will you?" That look didn't have a bit of temperature at all. Serena nodded stiffly. Even Victor could only bow her head, let alone her. Under normal circumstances, she was not Victor's opponent at all. And vampires will cause differences in strength because of the time before and after they become vampires, the length of time they survive, etc. To put it bluntly, Anson's means are not something she can deal with. Serena was just about to leave with Michael when Mindy's voice appeared. "Wait, he's staying here." Serena frowned. "Your Excellency, he is just a human being. I don't think he is of any value." Anson raised his hand. "Avada nibbles a big melon." Michael froze, then howled. "Nope." "What did you do?" "Oh, God." Serena collapsed to the ground, breathless, dead. Anson said unimpressed. "She can question my words now for the sake of someone, and dare to do something more serious in the future. Are you right, Mr. Victor?" "Yes, Your Excellency, I know it well." Sneering aside. "Experience?" "Oh, if you are afraid of death, you are afraid of death." But a high-level vampire who is greedy and fearful of death is useful to him, and vampires are different from other extraordinary races, and their weaknesses are extremely obvious. Fear of the sun, it just so happens that it is easy for wizards to target their weaknesses. The advantages are also extremely obvious, longevity and easy to create new vampires. It is the cheapest and fastest option among the riot options. Although he has 3 wizard legions in the wizarding world, he may increase a lot after returning home. But some things, such as the mole world, or not to expose wizards, vampires, they are very suitable for shot. "Anson, what should he do?" Wanda pointed at Michael. "He should be useful to us, right? If Corvinus can be found, Michael's role will be gone. Corvinus's blood is the ancestor of this werewolf and vampire in the Marvel world. At least with blood that produces extraordinary power. Michael is different. His blood may also be special, but it has been diluted for more than 1,000 years. It's hard to say how many miracles there are." Hall. The House Elf Hall appeared in a twist, and immediately stepped forward to salute after seeing Anson. "Young master." "Well, Take him back to the castle and keep him closed. Don't let him die. Understood. Hall disappeared again, and Victor, who saw this scene, lowered his head even lower, took out his mobile phone and dialed Ulysses' number. Well, find someone. He should have been staying on the ship, has armed forces, and his name is. Put the phone down. Mr. Victor, how many of your vampires do you have at the moment? Your Excellency Mage, there are not many of them. One has left the Europa region due to special relations, and we will not be able to control more than 10,000 clansmen at present. 10,000? That's really pitiful. What about the Daia? There should be more werewolves, but I ordered the hunt down and kill werewolves when I was hibernating, and I don't know how many there are. Victor's ethnicity has been killed by Anson and Wanda. Well, now you can't even get basic data. If you find a new group of vampires, will you be able to control it? Victor knelt on one knee with his head bowed. Closing parenthesis. Your Excellency, I am one of the vampire elders, but there are many vampire elders besides me, such as Marcus. Well, do you value rights? Very good. Not afraid that you have no desire. I am afraid that your desire is not big enough. He'll disappear. That should be possible. After all, there is no one who is not afraid of death, even a vampire. Anson suddenly said, be loyal to me. You can get anything you want, even if it is walking in the sun. Victor was short of breath. Vampires worship darkness? No, no, no. What they admire most is the sunlight that can kill them, and only after surviving in the dark for a long time do they know the preciousness of sunlight. It has always been so. Every vampire is like that. What do I need to do? How about proving your abilities first? For example, werewolves. I think that a group of extraordinary races with infectious diseases are not suitable for existence in this world. What do you think? Yes, Your Excellency, Victor will eradicate the werewolves. Well, just call me Anson. I'll give you what you want when you're done. Power, money, status, and fame. Even enjoy the sun. Anson looked at him with a smile. Keep up your greed and timidity, Mr. Victor. You won't let me down, will you? Victor is willing to give loyalty. Wait and see. With a wave of his wand, flotation charm, Marcus's coffin rises slowly, beautifully shaped, and there is not even a trace of cobwebs on it. Although he was still sleeping, Anson could still feel the strong energy inside this dry corpse, which was indeed much more powerful than Victor. Victor was turned into a vampire by Marcus, who is a first-generation vampire with wings that can fly and even withstand certain sun damage, but stupidly chose this way to hibernate. I'm afraid that a human grenade put into it will directly explode into pieces, right? Fortunately, it was sleeping in the vampire's base camp. No wonder werewolves are engaged in all kinds of technology and research. You vampires are still eating old books. Wisdom is a hard wound. Victor stepped forward, and Pietro immediately appeared beside him. Can't help but take another step back, so fast, he can only see the afterimage. Sir, although Marcus hibernates, he will wake up immediately once he is hurt. Well, good. The dog-leg path is one step further. Victor is worthy of being called the most timid, shameless and low-limit vampire in the Legend of the Night. Such people are easy to control. As long as you are always strong, people like him will be more loyal than pets. Chapter 135. More. After 3 days, Victor travels alone to the train where another elder is traveling, and by the time he returns, Amelia, the other elder, is dead except for some vampires. According to Victor, Amelia failed to honor her loyalty to Anson and died. As for the process, Anson was not interested. Nearly 500 vampires. These are basically vampire elites who are active outside, at least for humans. Well, without weapons. Once the weapon is used, the vampire can only hide in the gutter, even if it has extremely fast speed. No superhero is needed, and simple human forces can beat them. Why? The popularity of technology, and the use of tools by humans. Put dense ultraviolet lamps in the place where they live, and vampires will be speechless to moles, scolding humans for not speaking of martial virtue. It's that outrageous. Werewolves are different. Silver weapons can indeed hurt them or even kill, but the resistance is better and more resistant than vampires. But Anson didn't have much affection for werewolves. This group of dogs is not a husky. Although they are werewolves, they are still human and have human intelligence. And the tradition of werewolves has always been to constantly resist oppression, and Anson does not like trouble. Good. This is your reward. A cup of blood floated in front of Victor. After picking up a few mouthfuls and swallowing it, it felt as if there was not much change. That is, this blood had some excess fat. Viscous. The next second, Michael's experience flashed in his mind. This is Michael's blood? Good. Try to see if you can survive in the sun now. Wanda raised her hand and came to him with a bright as day spell, and the hot sun shone on him, and Victor couldn't help but scream. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 10 seconds. Wanda stopped when she saw Victor's skin begin to fester. Anson did not feel surprised to see this result. The blood of the first-generation ancestor Corvinus is indeed very strong, but I don't know how many generations it is when it comes to Michael. It is not easy for a cup of blood to keep Victor alive in the sun for so long. Anson said leisurely, do things well. Think about what will happen if you take Corvinus blood. It's worth looking forward to, isn't it? Yes sir, Victor's loyalty is as hot as the sun. I hope so. On the 5th day, Elise finally replied to the message and found Corvinus' location, which was in a certain port in Europa. He would be resupplied in 3 days. Night. Some figures could be faintly seen shaking on the port, some sailors carrying things to upload, and a group of people walking towards them from a distance, carrying a large box. Hey, friend, this is private territory, you guys are going wrong. Victor stepped forward in a suit. Please inform Mr. Corvinus that Victor is asking for a meeting, and added after seeing the security officer's hesitation. He'll meet me. In fact, now Corvinus has detected movement under the ship. For so many years, his subordinates have been monitoring vampires and werewolves, and naturally they are no strangers to Victor. But what they didn't expect was why Victor was here and still found them. Let them come up, came the headset, and the security guards motioned for everyone to upload. You can't. The vampire in the rear was stopped again when he tried to step forward, this time, very firmly. Anson nodded, and Victor asked his subordinates to wait outside, and the result was the same anyway. Aboard. Corvinus looked at Victor curiously, as well as Anson's group beside him. Finally see you, Patriarch, Mr. Corvinus. Victor greetings you. His expression was calm, but there was an urgent desire in his eyes. Corvinus frowned. Victor, won't you introduce me to the people around you? It seems that you have found a new master. Yes, Mr. Corvinus, people will change. After all, this is Mr. Anson. Ah yes, we also brought you the Mr. Marcus you have been looking for. Raising his head and smiling, that is, your son vampire ancestor, Marcus. Where? Corvinus was not calm. Outside. Giving the security guard next to him a look, Marcus's coffin was carried in a few minutes later, and the old man stepped forward to touch the coffin. The look was embarrassed. Say, what's the matter with me? Anson, I want to give it to your excellency. Let out blood. Well? Corvinus also thought he had misheard. Teenager, what did you say? As soon as Victor waved his hand, there were immediately gunshots from all over the ship. Closing parenthesis smiling, he said, it's just bloodletting. Wonderful evolution, isn't it? Zero ask for flowers. Corvinus narrowed his eyes. You think you can take this place with these vampires? I made you and naturally know your weaknesses. This, Victor really didn't think of. The eyes looked at Anson. Pietro disappeared immediately after receiving the signal, and the gunfire subsided a lot. In less than 10 minutes, Pietro sat on the side as if out of thin air, playing with a dagger in his hand. Anson cocked his legs. Mr. Corvinus, I'm curious about the secret that the Black Death can't kill you. In other words, your blood should be considered uncontaminated. On the contrary, it is because of foreign diseases that you have made a leap in life, which is very remarkable. I don't understand what you mean. It's all this point, so there's no need for this, right? Mr. Corvinus, be my experiment, and I will give you everything you want. Seeing that Corvinus wanted to get angry, Anson raised his hand to interrupt what he wanted to say. Don't refuse yet, such as the lives of your 2 sons. How about it? You're not losing money on this trade, are you? Silent. Anson was bored. Mr. Victor, you can go deal with the werewolf. Pay attention, you still need a key on him to catch William, you know. Of course, sir. The vampire appeared and left in a hurry. Anson and Victor were left alone on board, along with the corpses. Who the hell are you? Wizard? Mage? You can understand it that way. As if drained of all his strength, Corvinus slumped in his chair. A blood that can make people evolve, who doesn't have hot A's? Although Anson didn't need this way to get a long life, his men still needed some comfort. He pursues win-win cooperation. You can't always give benefits if you don't give benefits. And he was also very curious. This kind of weird blood should not be simple. Maybe you will get something from it. The big battle between vampires and werewolves will attract the attention of humans, and you will get nothing then. Corvinus looked at Anson. I have the same connection with the vampires over there in Mika, young man. I don't know if you can block this force. Anson blinked. Compare forces with me. Chapter 131. The collection of Corvinus, who lived for more than 1,000 years. After the effect of the spit potion, Anson found some information in Corvinus' memory that made him extremely happy. Corvinus, it wasn't really because of the disease that caused his blood to produce changes that would make him live longer. In fact, it didn't make sense. Only because his blood existed extraordinarily first, there could be a series of subsequent changes. So why is his blood extraordinary? The birth of any phenomenon is generally impossible to be an exception, and one phenomenon means that all human beings should have such skills. So, through the use of the spit potion, a name appeared in Corvinus' memory that surprised him. Supreme Evolution. In addition to the Kree Empire, the Skuru Empire, and the Shia Empire, there are many top civilizations in the universe, such as the Shandar civilization. For example, the Soviran civilization with golden skin, hair, and pupils. It just so happens that in the information that most people don't know, the Sovlin civilization is a race studied by Supreme Evolution. It is artificially made. Sovlin's great admiration and flaunting of his perfect form also stems from the Supreme Evolution's pathological quest for the perfect state of species and society. Throughout his life, Supreme Evolution has been trying to create a perfect 5-6-7 life and society, and let him rule. The presence of Corvinus illustrates this point. With evolutionary blood or genes, and not much aggressive and devastating, theoretically speaking, it is indeed far beyond humans. And, in addition to these, if Anson is not mistaken, the changes in the Wanda siblings in the movie universe also stem from supreme evolution. Simply put, the reason why Wanda and Pietro can have various powers is also thanks to the transformation of the supreme evolution to them. In other words, supreme evolution came to Earth at least more than a decade ago. Interestingly and notably, supreme evolution seems to have taken all the basic biological samples from Earth for study. Why? Then it comes again to who created the Marvel Universe on Earth, the Celestial God Group. In other words, can Anson doubt the true purpose of supreme evolution's attempt to develop perfect life and perfect society? Actually, start chasing? Oh yes. To put it simply, the raccoons in the post-galactic Guardians have also undergone the transformation of the supreme evolution. Ellis, young master, all the vampires industries have been integrated. Pass the details. That's a lot of a look. Well, you can deal with it, and urge Victor to solve the werewolf's affairs as soon as possible, and I may need to go to the beautiful card. Are the vampires over there in trouble? Perhaps. Victor said that the vampires over there will not obey his orders, and when he finishes solving the werewolf, he will solve it all at once. I see. Return to Avalon Castle. Outside the wall of size of Asgard, the Rainbow Bridge was restored and finally re-established on the continent of Asgard, and the Divine Domain once again regained control of the 9 realms. Hey Idama, you have seen all these behaviors of him, but it seems that he is not very interested in Thor and them. Hey Idama did not speak. My king, is he really that important? Odin sighed. I don't know. Yi thinks highly of him, and even allows him to do some things that the secret mages in Midgard did not allow before. It's not easy. Anson, on the other hand, was very unimpressed with Thor, and admittedly, Sol had changed a certain amount after this series of things. But it was far from his affirmation of a king. Imagine what would happen if Asgard were handed over to Thor in the future. He couldn't imagine it. I'm afraid it's a disaster. None of the brothers gave him peace of mind. Hey Idama suddenly said, my king, have you forgotten a person? I think you may be able to consider it. If the operation is good, it may not be a new student in the Divine Domain. Odin turned his head sharply. There was an emotion jumping on the one-eyed eye, like shock, more like a sudden realization. It seems like, okay, wouldn't that be too cruel for her? I haven't given her anything. Maybe she'll hate me more. She's a little more violent and less generous than Thor, but she's extremely intelligent. After speaking, Hey Idam stopped talking. Europa, a certain seaside in Novi. The Rainbow Bridge sent Odin here, disappeared in an instant, brought a bunch of flowers here, and specially changed into an earthly suit. The expression was slightly apprehensive. That should be good. Reach out and wave. A dark green light curtain appeared in front of him and stepped in. Gee, and lo and behold, who is this? This is not Odin, the Lord of the 9 realms, the God of the gods, but your presence in this small place is really. It's shining. A young woman sits on a stone in a thick green fog not far away. Odin looked stunned. Hela, does it have to be like this every time we meet? If I'm not mistaken, I would be your father. A father who locked me up for more than 1,000 years. Odin, you know why? Know what? You can whitewash your brutal past with benevolence, but I need to bear the sin of killing. These killings should have been counted on your head. Hela, I'm running out of time. Hela suddenly stood up and walked to Odin's side, and even leaned over to sniff the flowers that Odin brought. It's still so tasteless. Of course you're dying. I can feel the power on the enchantment getting stronger and stronger. You know, the longer the people of the god domain live, the greater the power. Turning behind Odin, he whispered, me too. When you die, Asgard will still be mine. Silent. He didn't know why it had become like this, but killing was not the best means of domination, and he was right. The 9 realms have stabilized, and you will not get anything other than the increase in casualties under the continued killing. Hela, I hope you understand this. Hela touched her hair, and her long hair stood up instantly, taking off a stone maiden. So, cowardice became your excuse? If you had agreed to continue expanding your territory, Asgard would now control the entire universe. You still think so? Hela spread out her hands. Mercy, it will only hold you back. Odin, you are still old after all. Closing parenthesis, and I'm different. Odin's suit disappeared, and a God King costume reappeared, holding the eternal spear in his hand and gently putting the flowers aside. I introduced you to a family affair. Hela, you're not old, you're stupid, are you? Why do you think you can control my future? You just need to know that the day you die, Asgard will fall into my hands. You can't change that. Odin scolded. After a few days, Anson had an extra magic item in his hand, similar to the 2 he had given to Filch and Quirrell 0. But this one in hand is more complicated because in addition to the original spell effects and rules that can be added above, a spell rule has also been added, the Armor Talisman Charm. It is equivalent to saying that in the future, through it, you can complete the mass production of dragon skin magic robes with the Armor Talisman effect. It was perfect. Wanda rolled her eyes. Are you going to arm wizards to the teeth? Anson's eyes lit up. Very good proposal. The number of wizards is still too small, and the wizarding world is only a few million plus the number, compared to the billions of people in the world. God. Oh no, it's Merlin's wand that meows. That's just ridiculously low. Every death of Anson will be heartache. Death Eater, listen to what you're saying. That said, you don't seem to be reading lately. Wanda, I found it as if I could have done what a wizard could have done with chaos magic, such as spells, if a special spell limited me. Anson raised an eyebrow. I told you at the beginning, you mainly learn the theory and experience of wizards in using charms, and it applies to you as well. Indeed. And Wanda's probabilistic modification ability is now under control, albeit only to affect a very small range of events. It's still limited by various things, but it's already terrifying. Not even Anson could do that. Even if he is not careful, he will be overshadowed by this trick. For example, once Wanda said that Anson's spell could not be used, and the result was obvious. What about Pietro? Training outside. Standing in front of the window, there is an afterimage and the manor running fast. It seems that Pietro is very obsessed with taking revenge on Stark. Pietro was inspired by the psychic scepter he used, and with the example of Wanda, it was very smooth ahead, and because of the dragon rules. His body is gradually developing, and the theoretical limit is still at the dragon level. Maybe it'll be higher. The transformation of the two siblings also allowed Anson to discover that it seems that individuals who are successfully transformed by the Infinity Stones will produce a new 3.5 rule in their bodies. Both connect the Infinity Stones. It is equivalent to drawing enough power from the Infinity Stones to use them. This conclusion is equivalent to saying that Wanda, Pietro, are equal to Captain Marvel. Pretty amazing, isn't it? But in fact, it depends on how the individual develops. Anson had thought about transforming himself, but unfortunately, all subjects except Wanda and Pietro only needed to receive the energy of the Infinity Stones. Just blew up. The kind that has no slag left. In the evening, Mr. Spencer rarely returned. Young master, look. In the newspaper, Anson was proudly branded as a villain. Simply put, he was wanted. And the person in charge is Ross, who captured the Hulk. The reason is because Anson took the technological devices that the Zatori alien civilization dropped on Nuio, and said that Anson's existence would threaten social stability. Anson pointed to the newspaper. I think he's right. Spencer bowed. Young master, do we need to do something? No, it's just a group of greedy hyenas who want to eat, and against this kind of person, a little meat can solve it. Can you use it? It should be. Chapter 132 Is Wakanda okay? There is no wave in the First Legion of Wizards, and the people at the bottom are not aware of the changes at the top, but Princess Surua seems to want to contact someone after we leave. The result? The entire Wakanda hierarchy has been controlled by us, and she can't contact anyone. Well, don't go wrong, Mr. Spencer, vibranium is also extremely important to us. I understand. At the banquet, everyone had just sat down and had not yet moved their knives and forks. Avalon Castle suddenly sounded a shrill alarm, and Anson could even see that the protective spell that the wizards had originally placed outside seemed to have collapsed. Slowly lower the knife and fork. It's okay, go check it out. It seems that we have guests. Walking out of the castle, on the grass outside, the security guards were each holding a weapon custom-made from Wakanda and aimed it at a woman in the center. Hela looked at Anson, who was followed by the crowd, and seemed interested. Are you my future queen? Anson, Spencer, all of them. Anson frowned. Uninvited is obviously not the behavior of a strong person. This lady. One Hela wore dark green close-fitting clothing, a dark cape on her back, her hair behind her back, and a little decoration on her head. It should be dressed up. If you are not willing to be my queen, I can also be your queen, my king. Hela greets you as you do. Hela? Anson squinted, his true eyes scanning the surroundings. No one? Spread out. The security guard left, and Spencer asked Anson, what the hell is this? Doesn't it mean that the protective shields laid out by the wizards will be burned to death even if Dumbledo comes in? What now? He couldn't say that the person in front of him was equal to many. Dumbledo added up to be equal. After all, the top power of the wizarding world is really a little ugly. Where is the ugliness? The difference in life levels directly limits the growth limit of wizards. Then why is Anson so strong? One is that he is very suitable for wizards himself. Anyway, he was born so strong. The reason is unknown. It is also because of this, perhaps related to his relationship with what the Ancient One believes to be a dimensional demon god. On the other hand, his soul is engraved with dragon rules, and the growth limit is the same as that of a dragon, and the level of life is different. But this is still not enough for Shanghai La. Rubbed his forehead. Your Royal Highness, it is an honor for you to come to Avalon Castle. Please. Hela stepped forward and stepped over Anson's handwriting. My king, please first. I also studied the culture of the Mid-East before I came. It should be such etiquette. The corners of the mouth twitch. What the heck? I'm still a little north-nosed. Wow. At the banquet, Hela feasted on the dragon meat on the table. Why don't you eat? Eating is sacred. It is the only way for most life to sustain life, and it is shameful to waste food, not to mention that it seems to be food with energy. Hall was immediately delighted when he heard someone praise his food. Madame, this is dragon meat, and the whole world is only owned by the Pendra family. Hela looked down at Hall, who was standing to the side, her eyes still with that lofty scrutiny. Good. Well, I don't know what species of intelligent creatures seem to have good magic. That's what you call my king? Anson nodded expressionlessly. Hela, is Hall right? In the future, when I fight in the 4 directions, I will give you an official position. In addition, you should call me queen. Your master will definitely not be ordinary. He will inevitably be the king of one world. Hall's eyes lit up. Madame, you are really wise. Hall also thinks so. I think Dumbledo is not as great as the master. Okay Hall, let's be quiet. Headache. You seem to have been limited by Odin's divine power. Why did you call me that? Witch. Speak up. Hela fed herself a bite of dragon meat on her fork. Your king. Anson felt ashamed of those words. This, praise Odin's old antique this time, is not bad for his eyes. You know, when a person only has one eyeball, there needs to be some doubt. She was happy with Anson. A wild dimensional demon god. Well, it looks very good. Worthy of her. In addition, she is curious about how much Odin admires this little guy. How ruthless is Odin? Closing parenthesis. The 9 realms said that if it was beaten, it would be beaten, and the Warner Protoss would directly hit until they did not dare to speak. Now there is a child he calls an existence that can change the future. Can you not be curious? As for age, she is only more than 2,000 years old, and there are still hundreds of years before she is 3,000 years old. And what is the age difference between her and Anson in a few thousand years? Not the cute age difference? Meow. A cat barked, cooing to the side faster than she could eat. Hela's gaze was immediately pulled over. It turned out to be a yuan-devouring beast. My king taste is good. I used to want to raise one, but I didn't find it. A pullover COO is placed on his knee and stroked. Gugu didn't dare to move. People who are full of the breath of death and the breath of destruction. It can't digest it. Goo, for the sake of dragon meat I would rather die. No, bend. Never mind. Wanda and Mindy looked at each other. Sister Elise is miserable. Let's hope he doesn't fight. My king, are these 2 humans also your pets? Hela looked at Anson. Anson clicked, and the knife and fork in his hand fell on the dinner plate. Tell me about this. Is the Grand Princess of Asgard, the goddess of death. Hela. Goddess of death? Grand Princess of Asgard. Norse mythological character. Hela. Hiss. Mindy. Sister Elise has no chance. Wanda 337 nodded in approval. This is not leaving a chance at all. Hela pretended to be a lady and nodded. You can call me the queen, and of course you can call me the goddess of death. Where is the king's room? I'm full and I'm going to wash the incense. Anson. Spencer coughed twice. Hall. Mr. Spencer, take this. Well, the goddess Hela went to rest. Hela emphasized, it's your queen. Well, take this queen to rest. My king, I'll wait for you. Anson. He suspects that Odin is deliberately making Hela disgust himself. Does he have that function? It doesn't seem to be impossible. Hey, what was I thinking? Young master, are you all right? Spencer was a little worried, and the sudden appearance of a great princess of the divine domain was not a good thing. Now there are so many things here, there must be something tricky in it. It should be fine. He wasn't sure, but he went directly to Karma Taj. Yu Yi smiled and looked at Anson. This is not a good thing. It not only saves the future of a goddess but also helps you. Good thing, Master Anson. Master Wang was also smiling at his aunt on the side. In other words, very few of our Earth's mages marry Asgardians. Anson mage, you gave us a long face. Bah, 2 old people will see him. Joke. Chapter 133. Spend the night at Karma Taj. During the day, Mimi quietly returned to Avalon Castle, and when she entered the room, she found a stunner lying on the bed. I can't say it, but that temperament is absolutely impossible for human beings. Although the divine power is sealed by Odin, the chorale flow is extremely beautiful. Not easy to mess with. Fortunately, it is not heavy makeup. My king, leave your queen alone on the first day? When this word spread, others thought that you had a physical defect. Anson with a black face. What is this called? He walked to the side and poured a cup of tea and drank it. I said, Princess Hela, let's pick up something and say how. There is no need for this. Hela sat up straight, her slender legs folded in one place and her hands on top of her, looking him up and down. The one-eyed dragon said that I can get everything I want with you. I didn't believe it at first, but now it seems that maybe it can. It's a deal. You get me, and even in the future, we can plot together the 9 realms and even the entire universe, which is very interesting, isn't it? Anson shook his head directly. Asgard is not yours. Odin is still alive. In fact, you can't help me much. You can't help me much either. I'm investing in your future, and you know, once I get to Asgard, even with Odin's seal, I will grow in power. You spat out. How long can he live? Anson is silent. What a good girl. Indeed, Hela's power is not the same as the regular Asgardian source of power. She is free from the authority of death. More power comes from the continent of Asgard itself. In fact, as long as Asgard exists, her power will be endless. Asgard was still very fond of Hela. But in other words, if something goes wrong in Asgard, Hela's power will be greatly weakened. The problem is, Odin really didn't have a few years to live. What Anson couldn't figure out was why Odin wanted Hela to come to him. Was he really investing in his own future? Russian can't drive away. Anson suddenly said, What if I want to attack Asgard in the future? Hela laughed. It seems that my king is as evil as me, but can I keep my subordinates for others? The queen can't even have a little manpower. You don't mind? Hela nodded. Why mind? Life and death have no meaning in themselves. They will be resurrected in my kingdom of God when they die, and they will be more loyal to me, and I have no reason to refuse. Okay. He forgot Hela's authority, which is equivalent to saying that as long as someone from Asgard dies in Asgard, his soul will be taken away by Hela. Because she has the authority to die, and the Asgardians who are resurrected by Hela with her power will only be loyal to her, it is very special. Another figure who plays with the soul. On the way to America, there is an additional Hela dressed in dark green. This guy also deliberately conjured up the symbol of the Pendra family on his clothes. Really high profile. Meanwhile, when the people on the Mika side detected Anson's appearance in the territory of Mika, they began to mobilize troops in a big way, and they still knew how strong Anson was. Zhao fought a battle and single-handedly froze many alien forces. How many people can resist this force? But Ross felt that dealing with these extraordinary forces did not necessarily mean using force to confront them, which was inferior. The experience gained from capturing his son-in-law for many years has summed up a good result for him, and most superheroes are mothers-in-law. Should it be called benevolence and hypocrisy? Ah, those superheroes are so cute, aren't they? They have gained strength far beyond ordinary people, but they still want to pretend to be harmless and stay in the crowd to live. Is it possible? So, Anson's estate in Miskar was fenced. Anson, you have been arrested for illegally possessing alien weapons and endangering the security of Mika's homeland, and I have the right to use any weapon against you if you resist. Ross was in a mood. This is a superpower owner far beyond the Hulk. The Hulk is not much sure of him. He disappeared without a trace after the last button war, and the one-eyed dragon on the shield side did not share information with him. If you want to eat alone, there is no good ending. Anson frowned in the manner, and the servants around him had already entered the basement. Hela raised her eyebrows. Who is this so brave? Are the humans in Midgard already that strong? Dare to howl with a dimensional demon god? Please, don't mess up. I'm a good guy. Reluctantly go out. Good fellow. The gunships that clicked in the sky were flying, and dozens of tanks on the ground had surrounded the manor. A large number of soldiers are even more dense. There is a posture that if you don't agree with a word, you will blow up the manor. General Ross, he's out. Closing parenthesis. Ross picked up the intercom device. Anson, surrender immediately, the Mika military will give you... Before he finished speaking, he saw a white cold air beginning to come out of Anson's tall wand. No, he attacked him. Request to fire. Request to fire. Click. Ice crystals began to bubble on the tank where Ross was, frowning. Authorized to fire. Bang bang, bang bang, bang bang. Countless bullets hit the place where Anson and Hela were standing at the same time. On the roof of a certain house, Fury sighed and shook his head. It's not saved. I hope Ross can survive. Sherlin, he dares to start. Anson is no one else. He feels more like a... Those who ignore the extraordinary abilities of life are useless for such people. Even he had to trade with Anson to ask him to make a move. Imagine how Ross's way of firing from the first moment could have a good result. It's a pity for those soldiers. Sure enough, in the next second, the cold ice that should have spread slowly seemed to expand in an instant, and all the soldiers and even the helicopters in the sky that were close to the manor were all frozen. No breath. Only Ross, who was left on one side of the tank, shivered. It's cold, or it's scary. Anson and Hela slowly walked past Zhao's, and the clicking ice was crushed by the two. Hela raised her eyebrows. It doesn't seem to be anything special, but he followed my king. Reach out and grab Ross. Wait, Anson shouted. He still has a little use. Useful? Anson nodded, and if he remembered correctly, it seemed that Ross could turn into the Red Giant, an ability much like the Hulk. But unlike the Hulk's unlimited rule, the Red Giant's growth has an upper limit. However, it is already very good compared to most transcendent beings, and it is a qualified experimental material. Ross slowly pulled out his pistol. Bang bang. A few shots hit Hela, leaving nothing but a spark. You guys. Monster block. Anson didn't care about that. Can you take me on a flight now? No, my divine power has been sealed by Odin, and I can't use anything else except my physical strength. Chapter 134. It's a problem. Releasing the flying broomstick, Anson had just ridden it, and Hela was already holding his waist motionless. Anson was confused. What are you doing, Goddess Hela? My king, how can such a feast be without me? You don't want me to stay here and be captured by humans, do you? Joke. Who can catch you? Who would dare to do anything to you? Odin will sneeze and many people will be scared to death. Rolling his eyes, he froze Ross and steered the flying broomstick away. In the distance, Fury felt bad. No. He wouldn't be going to find someone behind his back who agreed with Ross to capture him, would he? Fury's face instantly looked bad. Hill felt that it was quite possible. Go and inform Stark and the captain that if Anson kills even one of the counselors, it will not be good for him, and it will be for us. Don't those who sit in high positions think that superheroes are so great that they can stop a nuclear bomb? Thanks to humanity's peaceful means, some people simply do not realize that the world has changed. For S.H.I.E.L.D., once Anson succeeds, Fury's Avengers plan may also be affected, which is not conducive to his future operations. Damn it, I shouldn't have watched the play just now. Stark Industries. 257 Stark and people looked at the picture with deep faces. Although most people in the outside world did not know Ross's actions, but it was not difficult for him to get some pictures, such as hacking into the camera equipment that the soldiers carried. However, the results surprised him. Anson's move may have seemed bold in the past, but now it is a little beyond their acceptance. Tony. It's okay, Stark rubbed his forehead. It's a pity that his anti-Anson armor has not yet been completed. The main thing is that there is too little data, and every time I see Anson, there is always new data. The abilities are all different. How did he develop armor against Anson? Jingle bells, it's me. Stark, you see, what will happen once Anson succeeds? I don't need to say more. I'll rush over as soon as possible. Hang up the phone and put on your suit and fly into the sky. On the other side, the American team and Natasha in S.H.I.E.L.D. have already set off on Kunstal fighters. No one thought it would be easy this time. Oh, God. They had thought that maybe one day they would face Anson, but they did not think that it would come so quickly. Natasha looked at her two pistols and thought about the methods that Anson had used in the past. Embarrassed. We're about to arrive. Hawkeye, who was driving the Kunt-type fighter, spoke, but the next second they saw nothing but the ruins of the parliamentarian's house being blown up. It seems that he got his hands on it. The next place, the second parliamentarian's house. Third, Anson fell from the flying broomstick, which was already surrounded by Mimika's police, and the counselor had already hidden in a bunker without appearing. Young man, just grab it. Anson's wand slammed the ground, and the eternal flame core at the tip of the wand emitted a dazzling red light. Judgment. A crisp and cold voice sounded, and the eyes of these people in front of the house in front of them turned red at the same time. This is an ability that the eternal flame obtains after absorbing the flames of the evil spirit knight. To put it bluntly, the flames are burning their souls and bodies. It's okay to deal with the little minions, but it's useless to deal with an existence like the Hulk. Anson, stop, shouted, and Stark fell from the air in his suit of battle. A Kunt-type fighter also landed on the side of the street, and the American team and others walked out fully armed. The scene was slightly tense. Hela licked her lower lip. It's getting more and more interesting. Syllable. Anson snapped his fingers, and everyone around the house turned into ashes and smoke, leaving no bones behind. Turned his head to look at Stark. Something? Team America gritted his teeth and stepped forward. Anson, I don't think this is your intention. Since you can fight against the Chitauri people in order to save so many ordinary people, why are you attacking innocent people now? Anson looked at Hela with his own care. How about going and helping me bring the people inside? Gladly, my king. Hela walked gracefully past. Where can a few people be satisfied? Novels. Just go to Felu. Closing parenthesis. Anson said coldly, whoever dares to move me to let you die can't live in peace. People you know still have souls when they die, and I'm good at souls. Stark stopped abruptly. The past when Anson threatened Hawkeye is still vivid. Don't dare to forget. The American team was anxious. Anson, there is no other way. You didn't know when they issued their order to arrest me, but you didn't come out to stop it, did you? Since you did, you have to bear the consequences. But not everyone is involved. Team America stands by its philosophy. Anson agreed. Not bad, but I like to let people who are still alive know what it is to offend me. What's the difference between you and Hydra and Red Skull? Using your own power far beyond others to persecute others. Is this really you, Anson? You won't know what the end of Hydra is, said the shield behind Team America already clutched in his hand. Anson smiled. Captain, you got a question wrong. First, I am not a persecutor, but a victim, and second, I am stronger and more ruthless than Hydra. Thirdly, what fate I will have for the enemy is not visible. Natasha, can't talk about it? Anson shrugged. Gunshots had already begun to be heard from the house. In the distance, as soon as Fury landed, Anson raised his hand and hit the death curse. Everyone was stunned. Fury's fallen body suddenly turned into a green-skinned strange-looking guy. Even Hill, who followed him, did not expect this change. Anson, the Skuru people, flying. Swish. The body fell at Anson's feet. It is indeed a Skuru, and it may not be that Ross will attack him without Fury's handwriting. Indeed, if Anson kills those who also capture him, there will be certain restrictions on superpowers, but it will also make the rotten people long for a group of such people to protect them. Avengers can be proposed. Simple planning. As for whether this is the Skuru or Fury, it is no longer necessary. What is it? Stark lowered his mask. Skuru people, you see, I don't even understand whose orders you are listening to, and you want to discuss whether I am righteous or not, which is ridiculous. Anson was directly sarcastic. He dared to say that the number of Skuru people on Earth now will definitely not be less. Are these Skurus harmless to be white? If he remembers correctly, there is a world in the multiverse where the Skuru people have completely replaced the upper echelons of the Earth, and even enslaved superheroes. The trick of the dove occupying the magpie's nest, The Skuru people are born with it. Chapter 135. Perhaps Fury wants to use the talent of the Skuru people to help him do something that is hidden from the world. But he also underestimated these Skurus, a civilization that is called the three major empires in the universe, with the Kree Empire and the Haya Empire will be simple. Even the Skuru themselves have superpowers within themselves. After all this time has passed since Captain Marvel rescued them, how many people have the Skuru gathered together? And how much racial power has been restored? Fury certainly didn't know. He obviously did not learn the experience of his own race's different hearts. Bang bang. Several figures were thrown out of the house by Hela, and even she was still carrying a fat man in her hand, cursing and cursing in her mouth. It is nothing more than shouting about his identity and what will happen, consequences if you kill him. Hela threw him to the ground like a lump of spicy chicken. My king, can I kill them? Hela longed. Of course. Hela walked up to one of them and raised her foot high. The American team shouted again, "Stop, Anson. You have no right to do this," such as, boom. Something blossomed under Hela's head, and she even smiled. Mortals, it is their honor to be able to die at the feet of the great Grim Reaper, and you should thank my king. Boom. Another one. When Hela stood on the third side, the captain couldn't help but make a move. A light flashed on Anson's wand. Team America, fly in. The American team jumping in the air was directly pulled over by the power of the flying curse, and Anson took a slight step back and bounced his legs forward. Syllable. After a crisp sound in the air, the foot kicked heavily in the belly of the American team and flew back upside down. Natasha and Hawkeye reached out and grabbed it. Several people looked ugly. Stark hesitated. Hawkeye was worried, and Natasha didn't care. Only Team America was struggling. Seeing people die, there is no point in fighting again. And they are not necessarily Anson's opponents. His methods are too weird, too incomprehensible. This energy Stark has described as a violation of today's rules of physics. God, if he wasn't a senior scientist, I'm afraid he would think the physics is gone. Anson released the flying broom again. By the way, if you see Fury and ask me to say a word to him, I need an explanation, and if you want to hunt me down, hurry up, provided you can bear the consequences. Soaring into the sky. The American team hurried into the house, and after a long time, they came out dejected, shaking his head at everyone. They all died, not even a dog was spared. Stark, do you remember what the woman said? Mortals, she calls us mortals. Such a tone I have only seen in one person. Natasha blurted out, Asgardians? Hill, looks like we need Thor's help. Can you contact him? Hill thought for a moment. Fury may have a way, but I don't know the specifics. The question is, where Fury is now. They don't know at all. And why did the green-skinned guy who was killed by Anson become Fury? Countless questions. 3 curved wing building. Pierce frowned at the briefing. I think we should have an insight into the plan in advance, otherwise I am afraid that waiting for this guy to grow up a little more may affect the mission. Sir, the question now is whether the insight plan can deal with him. Pierce sneered. How about mushroom bombs? Another villa. Hela looked at the Skuru released by Anson, and the Sword of King's ring in his hand. It seems to be an artifact. Artifact? Anson was puzzled. Hela, you don't know? This is a ring passed down from my family, and it seems that the specific function is only some storage space. Of course, I would prefer to know the Skuru people if I could. Some interstellar wandering remnants, my king. As long as you want, they can be destroyed at any time when my strength is restored. It's just so domineering. The problem is that Anson has more to think about. At present, he has made the Earth his own land, and the Skuru people may also need to clean it up. Hela seemed to have thought of something. Closing parenthesis. What's wrong? I seem to remember that there was such a prophecy in the collection of books in Asgard. No, from the collection stolen from the Warner Protoss, which stated that Midgard was the place where the Skuru people rose. They're going to re-establish civilization here. It should be, that had one more reason to destroy the Skurus. Anson should have thought about solving the vampires here. But now it seems that things are more tricky on Skuru's side. 0 for flowers 0. After instructing Victor on the Europa side to get the werewolf, he led the team himself. Rushed to Wakanda with Hela. Skuru opened her mouth wide when she saw the Skuru people. This was the first time she had seen life outside the Earth. Are you saying that this creature can change into another species at will, and even copy memories? Well, Anson nodded. Is it possible to build a machine that can recognize them? I suspect that the Skuru are invading Earth with their racial talents, and if people in the upper echelons of Earth and even people in special positions are replaced by them, you know what will happen. Skuru fell silent when he heard this. On the one hand, it was Anson who controlled Wakanda with lightning speed, and even her, the Princess of Wakanda, can now only be regarded as a twisted screw on Anson's assembly line. Her father, Queen and Queen were even locked up. The slightest mistake can lead to death. Now Anson plans to save Earth because of alien life like Skuru. It's so weird, this feeling. Which side is the real you? It's a little difficult. If they can really copy another person's biological information as you said, then it is already genetically undetectable. Skuru seemed to see the cold light in Anson's eyes, and quickly changed his words. I'll try it, but you know, I'm alone. It's not going to be fast. More researchers will come here to cooperate with you in the future. and you don't have to think about the rest. Immediately notify Elise to deploy scientific researchers, and even Dr. Helen Zhao, who is in the stick, has come here, all in order to create an instrument that can detect the Skurus. It's not Anson exaggerating. Once the Skuru discovers the wizard, or even gets the opportunity to become a wizard, the information he has will be leaked out in an instant. Difficult. Fury's dog is playing with fire, trying to control the power he can't control. Why didn't Captain Marvel take the Skuru in the first place? Even finding them a living planet is extremely simple. Why? Because the entire universe is almost unwelcome to the Skuru. Imagine a race that can steal all the civilization of your civilization at will. Wouldn't you be afraid? Chapter 136. A large number of scientific researchers have been transferred from the Pendela industry, and led by extremely top researchers such as Suruya and Zhao Helun, but the speed is still not fast. This is normal. The Skuru, relying on their unique racial talents, once invaded the Kree Empire and the Hea Empire without being discovered. If it weren't for the Kree Empire knowing the plan of the Skuru people in the back, I am afraid that it would not have attacked the Skuru Empire on a large scale, which is one of the reasons. Now Anson wants to use the scientific research currently controlled by Earth to understand a difficult problem that even the Cosmic Empire cannot figure out. It's a bit hard to be true, but that's where the Earth is special. This place always works wonders, and Stark's arc reactor technology is not a gadget even if it is placed in the universe. Wakanda has developed a series of technologies with vibranium, and it is definitely not a gadget. Even all sorts of weird technologies. 3 all show that the Earth has a scientific research power different from the universe, which is very metaphysical. Sir, my program is being tampered with. No, the other party has entered my program. Sorry. Jarvis just finished. Stark, who was still engaged in the research and development of the armor in the basement, suddenly saw Elise, who was the richest woman in the world on the surface, but secretly Anson's butler. How will you find yourself? Put down the wrench. Oh, look who this is. Miss Elise, it's not very good for you to behave like this. Mr. Stark, Anson needs your help. Stark frowned. Anson? Yes, you must know the matter. Skurus. Elise nodded. I have sent you the information. If you are interested, someone will pick you up and study it together. Drip. The projection shows that the file transfer is complete, and below, there is some data about the Skuru people that Suruya researched and Anson revealed. Completely mimics biological information of other species. The mechanism is unknown. Suspect that a large number of humans around the world have been replaced by an alien civilization such as Skuru. Want to find a way to identify Skuru? Tricky indeed. He didn't try to use his magical sorcery. Mr. Stark, now is not the time for jokes. Stark paused. You can't study it? It seems that the great Stark still needs to make a move, so come and pick me up. Turn off projection. Jarvis. When the time comes, you pay attention to locating my location. Yes, sir. I couldn't find your place before. Now it's up to you to do it. By the way, Jarvis, remember to tell Popo what I'm going to do. Received. In the next second, the space around Stark twisted, and Hall appeared to bend down in salute. I haven't seen Mr. Stark for a long time, so, is there anything I need to prepare? Instruments or something, or you can wait for me to put on the armor, he said, walking to the side of the armor. Hall would not give him a chance, and flashed the stick's side, directly launching the phantom transfiguration and disappearing. Jarvis, can't locate. Wakanda. Stark in the laboratory is already confused, and the dense group of researchers is studying a Skuru person. That's it? Anson composed his face. Any clue? Did you understand what I said? Anson. Well, it seems that this guy's mouth is still the same and people can't like it. Huh. Dr. Helen Zhao? Helen Zhao smiled and nodded. Introduce you to this princess of Wakanda, Suruya. She is also the main person in charge of this research. It should be easier for you to come. The two shook hands, and their eyes were full of that feeling of sympathy. He could see that the instruments in this laboratory were very special, and they could be seen everywhere, some of which were not even available outside. Suruya, the famous Stark. So, when can we start working? Anson, my request is to build an instrument that can identify the Skuru people, for a purpose that you know. Stark was a little unimpressed at first, but when he researched it, he found out that it was really difficult. Why can a species different from humans completely transform its body structure, or even genetically become human? What's even more terrifying is that once the Skuru people complete their transformation, even human memories can be directly copied in the past. Why? Although Anson says that the memories copied by the transformation are only information for a short period of time, it is also extremely remarkable. In other words, is it possible to suspect that the Skuru have the ability to completely replicate the memory of another individual? Wait, this is vibranium? Closing parenthesis. In the dissecting Skuru, Stark looked at the scalpel in his hand in amazement. God, looking at the various instruments on the side seemed to be made of vibranium. Suruya nodded. Yes, almost all the vibranium in the world comes from Wakanda, but this is not a good thing. Helen Zhao glanced at the laboratory and found that few people paid attention to it before saying. Anson took control of Wakanda. Stark instantly understood the meaning. Only, What the hell is he going to do? He's also very hungry. If your armor was made of vibranium, what would it be? Dry. In the future, you must ask Anson for some materials, and use this help as an excuse. On the other side, wizards are also studying from the 3 directions of potions, magic items, and spells. The spell is relatively simple, and their flying charm is very direct, as long as they use the flying charm in the crowd, such as Skuru flying by, to be able to distinguish the Skuru people. Magic is so incredible. The only drawback is that it is too inefficient, mainly because wizards cannot go all over the world looking for the Skurus. Potions are more complicated. Young master, we have made a medicinal powder through the bones and potions of the Skuru people, although the Skuru people can be identified through this powder, but the efficiency is still not improved. Anson wrinkled his eyebrows. Is there a way to achieve it through scientific and technological means? We took it, but technology doesn't seem to be able to fully interpret the effects of potions. Now there is only one magic 0.0 item left. This aspect can only be studied by Anson, or it involves the rules of magic. The problem is that magical items also require someone with magical powers to use, and it doesn't work the same way that he can't cast a magic wand to a mole. Energy is a problem. It seems that I will go to the wizarding world to find some ways to make Philosopher's Stones in the future. The existence of the Philosopher's Stone also plays an important role in the promotion of Anson's alchemy, but making the Philosopher's Stone is more evil. There are people in its raw materials, as well as human souls. This is why Nialame is reluctant to make the Philosopher's Stone, and Harry and Hermione are also reluctant to make the Philosopher's Stone later. Is there a way for the Skuru to become wizards? I mean, will they be able to fully understand our memories? This. Chapter 137. Young Master, if there is a living Skuru, maybe he will be able to get complete data. Will Skuru be able to turn into a wizard? And how many memories and abilities can you copy from the past, or can't turn into a wizard? At least it should not replicate the abilities of wizards in the past. After all, the Skuru have no magical powers, but this is not absolute. Another Anson's main concern is that the relationship between the Skuru and Fury is very wrong. Once the Skuru obtain the wizard's information and inform Fury, the King of Agents doesn't know what will come out yet. If Stark doesn't believe that anyone is born of his own strength, Fury wouldn't believe that anyone was born of his ignorance and desire for control. Of course, it can also be seen purely as a desire to protect the Earth. Whatever it was, leaking the wizard's information was unforgivable to Anson. I'll find a way to capture a Skuru. Get ready. Okay. The 500 elite wizards brought by Anson were either dark wizards or Death Eaters, and there were basically no good people, and it was common for them to play with souls and lives. Some were even recruited from Overturned Alley. Thanks to the fact that Anson's method of inscribe the rules added a little to it, otherwise, this group of dark wizards would not be very willing to obey. Night. Stark saw Wakanda's technology, and 3 top researchers were talking and laughing and drinking outside the lab. If I hadn't seen this scene with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that there would still be such a technology here. But why are you not willing to share it with the outside world? Seeing that Surui's face was a little wrong, Stark immediately added, I mean, you can do more. Surui shrugged. My ancestors have always warned us one thing, we can't see through human greed. Do you know what will cause so much vibranium to appear in the outside world? Helun Zhao blurted out, war. Yes, this is the greatest possibility. We have great power, but we do not advocate the use of force to rule anyone, which I think is still good. Stark shrugged. Truly, with the current technology of Wakanda, it can completely dominate the world. Even if it cannot, at least there is no problem in traversing the Black State. Maybe you can even get the position of the 5 rogues. Is it difficult? Number. Once the crushing of science and technology is formed, it is a gap that cannot be crossed. Chatting and talking, the 3 of them did not speak at the same time. The wizard is coming. What's wrong? We have captured a living Skuru. Do you want to come and take a look? Well, deep in the laboratory, a Skuru man placed in a glass enclosure sometimes looked madly and sometimes silently at the group of researchers surrounding him and wizards in black magic robes. Young master, let's get started. The wizard pulled out his wand and smiled cruelly, but no one here cared if they had used the unforgivable charm. Moreover, the young master also highly respected the unforgivable curse. Soul out of the body, the Skuru people immediately became sluggish and confused, and their originally manic expressions immediately became quiet. Spell? Anson said to himself, don't be afraid. We will wash away your memory of this research after you finish the research here. Helun Zhao, this doesn't sound very good. It's already merciful compared to being alive. The scientific researchers transferred from the Pendra family industry naturally have nothing to say. Anyway, the money is enough. Another wizard stepped forward, controlling the Skuru to change into the appearance of a wizard. The next second, 2 identical wizards stood opposite each other. Even the magic robes on their bodies were exactly the same. Surui cut off a copy of the hair of both. The genetic information is the same, but the wizard has an energy in the body that I cannot understand, and the body density is very strong, and the Skuru people seem to have no such energy. Verified Anson's idea. Give him a wand. The spell was not used, and Anson was relieved. Not waiting for anything else. Let him tell everything about wizards. After a pause, you don't have to leave. Anyway, the memories will be erased by then. Stark was curious. Except for your weapons, fragmentation, avad annoying on melons, out of body, all petrification, floating spells. Closing parenthesis every time he uttered a spell. Anson's palm involuntarily clenched. Use the flashback pre-charm to see how well you recently pronounced the spell he pronounced. The transformed wizard immediately moved, until, young master, it was 15 days ago. Hiss. Against the sky. Without waiting for Anson to calm down, the artificial intelligence in the laboratory issued another alarm and detected that the Skuru who had transformed into a wizard had an energy response in his body. Energy fluctuations are the same as wizards. Calm face. Give him a wand, with a levitation charm. You got him. Leviosa. A feather shook under the control of the Skurus. A coldness filled the entire laboratory. Everyone was silent, even ordinary researchers, not to mention Suruya and Stark. Imagine after they met a Skuru, the arc reactor technology in Stark's brain was directly stolen, and he didn't even know how people obtained it. What happens to Stark? The Skuru are born thieves. God, if they run into the Hulk, does that mean that they can mass-produce a large number of Hulks at any time? The question is, how did he change? He didn't have access to the transformed Proto-597 body, nor did he directly get the wizard's genetic data. I don't understand. Suruya. Perhaps, this is a superpower. The idea is interesting. Elaborate. Suruya paused. If we think of this transformation skill as a superpower that pervades the Skurus, it is traveling far away in a way that we cannot understand. There must be a core mechanism that we didn't discover. As long as this mechanism is found, the Skuru can be restrained? Helun Zhao said. Stark shook his head. Impossible. It is not difficult to kill the Skuru. Is how to find him. He may be a beggar on the side of the road, or he may be an agent, or even a high level. Once you get it wrong, it is bound to cause social unrest. And the only person who knows the Skuru people best is Fury, who has disappeared. Stark turned to look at Anson. Is there a way to find Fury? He probably knows a little more than we do. You think he'll tell us? He apparently had a secret deal with the Skuru. He's playing with fire. That's right. He's been playing with fire. Anson said faintly. How many wizards does Wakanda need to leave to control it without causing unnecessary trouble? Young master, at least the first wizard legion can't leave. Then the 500 wizards of the family are ready to go. Chapter 138. Anson, what do you want to do? Stark reacted sharply. You have to think clearly. The last time you killed some people in Mika has not passed. If you do this now, you will be everyone's public enemy. When do I need to look at other people's eyes? Shake your hands and walk out of the lab. Since technological means cannot find out the Skuru people hidden on the Earth in a short time, he uses wizards to find them little by little. Skuru is an interstellar refugee. No matter how many people there are, it is impossible to hide all them inside the Earth. Even if they are, they just kill. As for what will cause it, he didn't care. In Wakanda's bedroom, Hela fiddles with her newly acquired vibranium suit, which she doesn't need, but it's beautiful. My king, there is actually no need to dwell on these. Anson sighed. I said, Goddess Hela, what would you think if the Skuru turned into Asgard, or even entered Asgard? They dare. I really don't dare now, especially when Odin is still there. But as long as there is a little mistake, Skuru can quietly replace a civilization, and the efforts of your countless generations have become the wedding clothes of others. There is such a possibility. It is simply a thorn in the side of others as soon as it appears. Let's go. Where to? Go find someone and ask for an explanation. Leave Wakanda with 500 elite mages and bring a few owls from Avalon Castle to find Fury's location. As long as it is not out of the Earth, the owl will be able to find where he is. 3 days later, Hall appeared exhausted. Young master, I found it. It seems that a technique of resurrecting people is being done in a secret-based resurrection. That should be Coulson's thing. It seems that he really doesn't know anything about things outside, and the Skuru people are pretending to be sheep. Still got Fury's acquiescence. Go, I'm inside you. Hall left with 500 wizards, a secret shield base, commonly known as the Tahiti Planning Office. Woohoo! Fury quickly pulled out his pistol. What's wrong? Sir, the outside world has detected an unknown infrared reaction and a large number of people are close to the base. Do you want to evacuate? No, Coulson is at an important stage, and once evacuated it will kill him completely. Quickly walked to the control room to look at the picture. There is no one on the normal screen, but in the picture captured by the infrared camera, a dense red figure stands outside. Sorcerer? His first instinct told him that this was a wizard, and this place is extremely secretive, even in S.H.I.E.L.D. Only his core will know here, and the only way to find him is the wizard's mysterious means. Close to the microphone, Anson Hall lifted his phantom curse. Mr. Fury, the young master has a request. What if I say no? Hall Elf's big eyes narrowed slightly. I'm afraid I can't help you, Mr. Fury. Please don't make it difficult for us. Behind me are 500 elite wizards. Do you know how far they can go? I'm curious. They can destroy S.H.I.E.L.D. in one day, Mr. Fury. Which one do you choose? No more sound came out of the microphone, and Hall shrugged. So, Trouble guys. The wizard stepped forward, and at the same time, several automatic guns were revealed on the dirt bag outside the base, and a huge raw and red tongues of fire were swallowing bullets. Bang bang. A dull sound sounded a meter outside the wizard's body, and bullets clanged and fell to the ground. The wizards showed playful eyes. That's it. They didn't even need to use spells. Dragonskin magic robes alone were enough to fend off Mull weapons. Praise Vibranium. The wisdom of the young master. How can these Mulls imagine? The wand was aimed at the gate. Strong explosion. Rumble. The smoke cleared, and the gate had been blasted open by the wizards, and Hall instantly disappeared in place, waiting until it reappeared. Fury Octavia shot at his side. Ding dong. Hall waved his hand casually, and the bullet stopped motionless in the air. It's rude, Mr. Fury, especially with the respected members of the Pendra family. If you are in the wizarding world, this move can be fed to the Dementors. Fury sighed. What are you looking for me for? Not struggling? Closing parenthesis. The corners of Fury's mouth twitched. If it was possible that he really wanted to pull off his blindfold and flick it on this little thing. The wizards entered the base and began to control all the personnel inside the base, especially Coulson, who was skulled. Back from the dead? Nice deck. You want this? Fury pointed at Coulson, the Tahiti project and the potion extracted from the Kree blood. Hall shook his head. No, we are here for you. Me? The information of the Skuru people. I wonder if you will say it yourself or let us do it. Skuru? I don't know. If you don't see the coffin, you don't cry. That being the case, Hall turned cold. Let's do it. All petrochemical. Swish. Fury was motionless, and Hall pulled out a video camera to record. Hell, give me a gentleman. This is for the young master. The wizard's body trembled, and his movements were much more standard, and it is said that after Fury woke up, he found that his body was sore, as if he had been beaten. Pour 2 drops of spit troop potion. Curse stop. After lifting the restriction of the petrification spell, Hall began to inquire. Where is all the data of the Skurus? Fury froze. I don't know, I just work with them. I provide them with a living environment. They help me do something. You don't know their location? So how did you contact them? Only a small number of Wang Zhao, Kairu people are known, and contact is carried out through a special communication device. Tell me the location information of the Skuru people you know. Where is the other instrument? At another base. The location of the Skuru is... Return. The people in the base put Fury on the bed, and when they woke up, they only felt as if their head had exploded, and their bodies were sore. Oh, God. This hurts even more than the last battlefield. What's wrong with me? Bite one's tongue. In the castle, Anson quietly read the information he got from Fury, which did not satisfy him. In this way, the search for the Skuru people still has to be done by wizards. The problem is, he's about to start school. Clear the Skuru according to the position, and make another bait. You know what I mean, right? The obedient wizard looked up and sneered. Young master, I understand. Chapter 139. At the home of a senior shield agent, the man had just returned home. His wife had prepared a delicious dinner and was waiting, and his daughter was waiting at the dinner table. 2 eyes fixed on the food they wanted to eat. How was today? The old way, you know. The man smiled and hugged his wife and sat down. Hey, my little princess, how was today? I met a little boy who was very nice. Oh. The couple looked at each other and smiled. Just about to eat, there was a knock outside the door. Bang bang bang. Who? The wife muttered everything. How could anyone come at this time? Got up and opened the door. Outside the door, several wizards dressed in black robes stood outside the door and waited. The wand in his hand was already aimed at the room. Madame, get out of the way. No, who are you? Faint. The woman fell to the ground with her mouth open, while the man had already raised his pistol and pulled the trigger, but he was blocked and lost his effect before entering the wizard's side. Avada nibbles on a big melon. After the green light spell disappeared, the man had changed from a human to a Skuru, and his green skin and ugly appearance made the 660 wizard disgusted. Frowned. Erase the memories of these 2 moles. On the other side, the wizards watched as a Skuru slowly fled into the crowd, constantly changing shapes. It's really a unique talent. If it weren't for the young master discovering their existence, maybe we would have suffered a loss on this kind of miscellaneous. Is the magic mark ready? It's already done. We can track him wherever he goes, but if they go to outer space, they can't. Besides, keep up. Skuru runs underground, and wizards ride flying broomsticks and cast illusion spells in the sky, like cats and mice. Hey, stop. Surround here. Pay attention to get their memories before killing. I don't want to be told by the young master. Don't worry. In a hut in the forest, several Skuru looked horrified and looked out from time to time. Hell, who are these black-robed people? I don't know, but they must have a way to find us, and as far as I know, many clansmen have lost contact. This is an emergency point of contact, but... Bang bang bang. There was another knock outside the door. After a burst of gunfire, several Skuru were directly poured into the spit magic potion and emptied out everything they knew. The wizard's face was ugly, It's difficult. The headquarters of these guys is actually in outer space. Not only that, but the Skuru have dispersed into Earth to replace some of the moles, which with their numbers cannot be eliminated in a short period of time. Beautiful Cabai House. Taris, now he is not called by that name, but a counselor in the White House with a very good position, ostensibly responsible for covering Fury. Secretly, he has replaced many Skuru in the White House. Now I am watching the content broadcast on TV with an ugly face. Even on the internet, Skurus, alien race, green-skinned, powerful, with the ability to transform into any human at will, undetectable by appearance and genetics. As far as we know, this race has entered the human world on a large scale, and he may be a familiar person around you. Several images of dissected and dead Skuru were published. Taris, what's going on? I don't know. There is no news from Fury's side, but he guesses who he provoked. Taris tapped his fingers on the tabletop. Let our people be safe lately, and this is a matter of whether our civilization can continue. I understand. It's just the chief. Fury should know something. Why didn't he say it? Perhaps this time the enemy is far beyond his control. Slowly, more and more Skuru were discovered and hunted. ACFG, and Taris could no longer sit still. Even on the internet, where it was reported, it is said that some people are already researching ways to distinguish the Skuru ability to gather information with beautiful cards. Taris also sees a beautiful card that has obtained information about the Skuru people, and these people are also studying how to find their way. Damn it. Who the hell? What the? The last time Anson went to kill the counselor, he shot directly. Then you underestimate how professional S.H.I.E.L.D. is in hiding things. Avalon Castle. Closing parenthesis. Anson sighed, and Spencer wondered, young master, is this method feasible? No, there is no way. School is about to start. I have to go back to the wizarding world. After all, the Skuru people dare not come in the open and poke out the fact of their existence. That's enough to give them a headache. Mr. Spencer, this time you don't have to go to the wizarding world. You still need to watch here. I understand. The wizarding world? Hela raised her ears and listened. Is this the dimension of his own little man? By the way, has the vibranium been shipped back? Everything is ready. The manufacturing instrument Elise has also been transported to the manor to arrange, as well as the newly made dragon skin magic robe. 1 month time. Even if it was to gather Princess Suruya and Stark, in the end, it was impossible to create a device that could distinguish the Skuru people. Stark was a little frustrated, especially in Wakanda. He could hear wizards every day about their capture of the Skurus. Quantity, too much. During this time, at least a few hundred of the Skuru corpses were transported to Wakanda for their study. Thinking a little deeper, who knows how many Skuru people have not been found. What made Stark even more disturbed was that most of the Skuru people who were transported back were from S.H.I.E.L.D. Oh, God. Fury is simply making a mess, and he hasn't cleaned up it himself. The 1st Wizard Legion and the 500 elite wizards I will stay here. The main thing at the moment is to continue to control Wakanda and annihilate the Skuru people. Pay attention to the collection of vibranium. In addition, the passage building built in England must be kept private, and you may use it the next time you return. Elise, can I go to the wizarding world? You know you are still needed here. By the way, how are the vampires prepared? Mika's vampires have not been cleared much, and the vampires under Victor are now in England waiting to go to the wizarding world together. Well, let them go to the wizarding world with me then. Maybe they won't come back in the future. The matter is explained. I went to check it out again at the passage to the world of the Dark Elves. On the way back, Anson met someone who surprised him. Who is he? Chapter 140. Who is he? Spencer glanced at the people outside their starting place. Well, an Oriental man was quite good looking. His skin was fine and white. Spencer invited him inside. What do you call it? Yang 11. Yang 11? As soon as I heard it, it was from the east. And the problem was that Anson could feel that this guy had strong energy fluctuations in his body. There are even very complex magic rules hidden, which must not be simple characters. Anson directly raised his wand to strike a fatal spell, and the green light startled Spencer. Young master, is there a problem with him? I don't know why I feel like I want to kill him when I see him. Strange. Kill the protagonist of the previous book, Scattered Flowers. Returning to Avalon Castle, more than 10,000 vampires returned to the wizarding world with Anson. Inside the wizarding realm Pendra Manor, Victor's head grew lower, especially when he heard Anson say that this was another world. The blood god is on top. Is this still something that people can do? Hall brought tea, please, Mr. Victor. Thank you. Anson smiled. Don't be afraid of anything. I brought you here because you are useful. I plan to completely control the world here, and you're mainly responsible for helping me get rid of some moles. That is, the top of ordinary people. Is there a problem? Sir, Victor will not disappoint you. Hopefully. Hall, take them down to arrange it, and inform Filch and Mr. Quirrell to come to the manor. Yes, young master. Waiting for the two to arrive, watching what happened after he left. The Death Eaters grew out of the Europa region, and the Ministry of Magic disappeared in most places, all in the hands of the Death Eaters. The wizard life over there is already in dire straits. Prices have skyrocketed. Dragon skin magic robes are in short supply. Now whoever has a dragon skin magic robe is already a sign of an upper-class wizard. After all, this is equivalent to your chance to have one more life than others. It is as it should be to be sought after. Mr. Filch, how many squibs have been transformed into wizards now? Filch bowed his head and reported. Young master, until now we have a total of 10 wizard legions, and the followers are hesitant because they need to join the Pendra family. However, I guess with the increasing insanity of the Death Eaters, they should not have another choice. 10 legions? In addition to the first wizard legion in the Marvel world, it is equivalent to saying that the number of 90,000 wizards he can mobilize right now. Very good. Lift out new alchemical magic items made in the Marvel universe. Upgrade our people's dragon skin magic robes. I added an iron armor spell to the new rules. As for the rest, turning to look at Quirrell. What about the Mole world? Most of the royal family and the Mole hierarchy have been completely controlled by us without causing waves, but there are some tricky places. The first is Mika's side, whose magical kingdom is still functioning normally without interference from the Death Eaters, and it is difficult to control the Mole high level over there. The other is the Black State, and the reason is the same. After Quirrell finished speaking, Anson had to reconsider something. How many Death Eaters are there in Europa now? Probably there are about 50,000, but most of them are dark wizards. But most of Voldemort's newly recruited Death Eaters are warheads, and it is difficult to say how much power there is. Understandable. What happened to the things I asked you to check when I left? The two looked at each other, and their jealous eyes showed that things were not simple. Young master, the Albanian forest is indeed very strange. We sent a large number of spell solvers into the deep forest to check, and indeed found some traces different from the wizarding world, but according to the judgment of Mr. Bill and Mr. Weasley, he said that there may be traces of ancient wizards here. Perhaps the grave of some wizard. Oh? This forest may not be familiar to everyone. In the original play, Voldemort went here after failing to become a soul for the first time, and the second time too. And Ravenclaw's daughter Helena once hid Ravenka's gold crown in this forest, and was later deceived by Voldemort before reaching him. There is still a lot more to do with this forest in the wizarding world. Even in Anson's chat with Grindelwald, he had mentioned to Anson to pay attention to this forest. Very unusual. Deep in the forest, according to the work logs of Bill, Weasley and others, it is not difficult to see that they have not even been able to enter. Zero ask for flowers. What kind of forces have made this place? Unknown. Closing parenthesis. Let them continue to study slowly. How are the overseas sales? Quirrell laughed. At present, we have generated a total of more than 3 billion gold gallons, and we have also obtained a lot of books from overseas wizard families, from purer blood families. At the end of the day, there is a lot of books and knowledge that Hogwarts does not have. It's an asset. By the way, I brought a group of vampires. Mr. Quirrell, you remember to arrange for them to deal with the affairs of the Mole world. Bloodsucker? Quirrell was surprised and blurted out, young master, is it necessary for such a chicken race as vampires? It's useful. We can't make a big appearance in the Mole world yet. Vampires can be used. I'll arrange it. Well, go down. Coincidentally, Hela came back from strolling outside. My king, this is your dimension? Gracefully twisted the large watermelon and sat on the side. Quirrell and Filch looked confused. My king? Does the young master have a marriage match? With a black face, I said, the goddess of death, you can think clearly that this is my dimension, without my permission. Even if you restore your divine power, you can't get out. People are not afraid of Anson's threat. One hand is cooing. Much better than my divine kingdom. My divine kingdom power mortals can't live. Then the power of this world is all mages? Sort of. My king, are you going to rule the world? It stands to reason that since you are a demon god in this dimension, it should not be difficult. Where does Anson not understand? But the problem is why he is considered a dimensional demon god of this world. He has not figured it out. How? Only a little bit of research. Quirrell, young master, this is goddess of death, Hela. You will see her as you would in the future. Waving their hands, the two left. Headache originally did not want to bring Hela. The wizarding world is Anson's basic plate. No one is allowed to peep. But when Anson crossed with the group, Hela suddenly appeared and grabbed Anson. It's kind of a forced ride. This operation is very well known. Chapter 141. Does anyone else watch? In the evening, Rita, Skeeter, and Umbridge came to the estate. Young master, this is the current situation. Those native Death Eaters we are monitoring who want to rescue them from Azkaban. This is indeed a bit of a hassle. But from here, it can also be seen that Voldemort should not be as smooth as the outside world seems. Otherwise how can he think of those Death Eaters who are locked up in Azkaban? Obviously he needs his own core strength to handle things. It also confirms from the side that now Voldemort's aggression in Europa has reached the point. Who? Rita, Evan, Rosier. The Rosier family? It seems that this guy was involved in the last siege of his laboratory, and he also passed on words from the Rosier family. Now it seems that he has completely gone with the Death Eaters. According to the Plan 953, how is Professor Dumbledo in the Ministry of Magic? Umbridge's pink clothes looked very happy, especially when she consciously or unintentionally showed a smile that she thought was friendly. Young master, Professor Dumbledo seems to have completely interfered in the work of the Ministry of Magic, and Minister Fudge basically has little real power, and the effect is good. Anson laughed. Fudge, a greedy wizard. According to Umbridge's description, it is said that Fudge now went to the Leaky Cauldron to work. Merlin's pink temptation. Is this still the head of the Ministry of Magic? Dumbledo is very good at playing. 3 days later, the production plant under Azkaban was shut down for a day, and Filch stopped all the squib wizards and watched from a hidden corner. Interestingly, the Dementors seemed to have disappeared, and the sky was clear. Yikes! Several shadow phantom shifts appeared not far from Azkaban. Strange, how can it be so quiet? From a long distance, you can hear the screams coming from Azkaban. It was the positive emotions of the Dementors sucking the wizards in Azkaban, and the screams that the wizards couldn't help but make, and it was also a feast for the Dementors. Now it is extremely quiet. Evan frowned. Go according to plan. Since the Dementors don't appear, we might as well just blow up the people who picked us up from Azkaban. Once the Ministry of Magic reacts, it won't be easy to deal with it. Moreover, the Pendra family's fight against the Death Eaters on home soil was great. There are many people in Azkaban who have been sent in recently, and even many are familiar to them. Yes, outside, the Death Eaters raised their wands. Forceful explosion. Yikes! Several rays of light hit directly on the height of Azkaban and exploded a crater, and flew into it on a flying broomstick. The smell of erosion and rancid came crashing. Quick! Deep in Azkaban, Bella heard the movement and quickly ran to the door, her mouth letting out a ha-ha-ha wild laugh. I know that the Master will not forget us. I am here. After the Death Eater approached and unleashed a spell with his wand against the door, Bella took the wand given by the wizard and slammed it into the Azkaban cell. Some innocent wizards even died under the spell of her cathartic anger. Not far away, Sirius struggled to get up. His withered body obviously didn't have much strength, and the Dementors hadn't taken care of him in the past. This is, what's wrong? Azkaban, which was blown apart in the distance, revealed moonlight coming in from the sky. Vaguely, several figures could be seen moving away in the phantom. Isn't the anti-phantom transfiguration spell laid out here? How did it fail? Moreover, the Dementors and the wizards of the Ministry of Magic who defended here did not appear, and it is impossible to say that they did not know such a big movement. Think about it. He remembered that not long ago, a man who had shocked him brought him a copy of the Daily Prophet. It was Filch, the squib they used to play with at school. Now he could go in and out of Azkaban at will. He did not understand, but more than once in the newspapers reported that his godson Harry had once again defeated Voldemort, especially the mouse in his friend's hand. He could never forget. As soon as his mind moved, his figure turned into a huge black dog, tore open the cell door and disappeared into the night. Filch stood below, in the rainy night, very noisy. Chatter. A Dementor floated beside Filch, faintly feeling a coldness. Deal. Exceed. Want. New food. Closing parenthesis. Filch turned around and indifferently took out a new contract. Look. The contract floated in front of the leader of the Dementors, and the power of the Dementors just touched it, and the contract burned out of thin air in the rain. Zero. Liars. The leader of the Dementors only felt as if there was something more in his body, the kind that could not hide the idea of dedicating loyalty to Anson and Pendra. It gushes out like a spring. Even the power of the contract is covering Azkaban in a strange diffusion that affects all the Dementors. Dementors, willing, dedication, all. Filch showed a mouthful of yellow teeth in a sinister smile. Wonderful magic. It is your honor to be able to dedicate your loyalty to the young master. It wasn't him who was involved next. Half an hour later, the Dementors transmitted the information to the Ministry of Magic, and Dumbledo and a group of wizards from the Ministry of Magic quickly arrived. What was the use? How many wizards escaped? All the Death Eaters who captured them, as well as Sirius. Merlin's hydrocephalus. Dumbledo couldn't imagine what harm these people would cause if they went out, especially at such a critical time. As a result, the Ministry of Magic held a meeting overnight to discuss, and finally decided to send some of the Dementors to capture the escaped Death Eaters. And Dumbledo rushed to Pendela Manor overnight. Long time no see. Professor, Anson had been waiting here for a long time. Dumbledore didn't care about this. Anson, can your power find those Death Eaters? They're gone. Left? Dumbledore opened his mouth more. Wasted so much strength is to release the Death Eaters and leave the homeland. 5.9. It wasn't like something Death Eaters would do. Who did it? The head of the Rosier family, arranged by the head of the family, Evan and Rosier. In fact, we have already captured him, and the rest will be left to you. Dumbledo took a deep look at Anson. Everything, it's too much of a coincidence. On the one hand, the Death Eaters of Azkaban have just been rescued, and Anson's side has captured the leading big brother. Anson, what exactly do you want to do? Professor, why can't I understand what you're saying? I obviously didn't do anything, didn't I? And even stabilized the stability of the native wizarding world. Anson turned his head to look at Hall, who was standing on the side and serving. This merit should be worth a Merlin medal, right? Yes, young master, you have always been so generous. Spreading out his hands, Dumbledo paused and had nothing to say. Chapter 142. Anson, are you okay? Wanda couldn't wait any longer with her arms in her arms. Well, and Hela on the side. She hadn't had a good understanding of this dimension, and it seemed very interesting that Anson, who was the dimensional demon god according to Hela's understanding, was going to school for lessons. Magical. Anson also asked Hela why others thought he was a dimensional demon god. Hela couldn't tell, just said it at a glance. Anson asked again, how to enhance her so-called authority as a dimensional demon god. Hela said that her kingdom of God was given by Odin and did not understand. Difficult. He is indeed a wild dimensional demon god. However, according to Hela's guess, Anson should not have found the right direction, once he found out what caused him to become a demon god in this dimension. Well, everything will fall into place. The three came to Diagon Alley through Flute Powder. It's still very lively, and despite the Death Eaters wreak havoc overseas, it doesn't seem to have been affected much at home. And because of the Pendra family's price reduction, local wizards generally have a very favorable impression of the Pendra family. O3 family. It was almost impossible to erect a shrine for Anson. It's that scary. Oh, that looks good, Hela said, wrapping her arms around Anson, her eyes scanning Diagon Alley. At least looking at this amount, you can know that the extraordinary power of this dimension will not be less, which shows the potential here. The problem is, it looks so weak. Wanda, go buy textbooks yourself. I'll take Hela around. Okay, find your own little friend and go. Hela raised her eyebrows. What do you have to tell me? This is not our world. You better not mess around. Your divine power has not been restored. It means that there is a high level of power in this world. At least that's what I think. The eyes are bright, which is really interesting. According to Anson's understanding, the wizarding world must have surpassed the Dark Lord and Dumbledore and even the four giants of Hogwarts before. For example, the Grim Reaper, who created the three Hallows of Death. The information collected by the Pendra family also shows that there are many things in this world that Anson has not discovered. At least the dragons of this world are weak and pitiful, which is very wrong. Under the Pendra department store, a huge screen is constantly playing Anson's speech. At this moment, wizards must defend the land of the wizarding world. Wizards must defend our freedom, and any wizarding world that tries to take away our survival will be destroyed. Hela paused. My king, are you trying to control them with your thoughts? If I want to say that it is faster to attack them directly, so Odin won't consider making you king of Asgard. Hela, mind is a sharper weapon than destruction. I'm looking forward to it. Entering the Pendra department store, the crowd was buzzing. Hey, Anson. Hermione saw Anson from a distance and exclaimed. Anson came with Hela. Oh, a couple of Hermione's useless men were there, and interestingly Delico was here. Apparently their relationship seems to be good. You guys are? Buy new textbooks. You know, we change the professor of defense against the dark arts every year. And this year Hagrid became a professor in the protection of magical animals. Good, he should enjoy the job. Hermione nodded. Yes, he shared his joy with us. This one? Everyone looked at Hela who was carrying Anson's arm, and the noble temperament and contempt for everything were difficult to ignore, especially so close to Anson. The wizards of the native wizarding world have developed an atmosphere of extreme worship for Anson, which is very strange. Subtly, it seems that everyone takes it for granted. Hela, Odinson. Hela replied, but apparently didn't mean to reach out. Delico, I'm familiar with that. Hello, I'm Hermione, this is Harry, Ron and Delico, we are Anson's classmates. It's obvious. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little awkward, Anson took Hela upstairs. Molly and Weasley walked out of the crowd. Obviously this is a powerful wizard. Okay children, have you all bought your things? Yes. Then let's go. It is said that there are still activities in the department store today, and Mr. Pendra is really generous. Arthur nodded. Not only that, it is said that there is also a new speech by Mr. Pendra to be broadcast today. Are you interested? Really? Closing parenthesis. Arthur shrugged. And the outside is already full of people. Anson took a sip of wine on top. Hela listened to what Anson recorded below a little out of his mind. It seemed, it was a little interesting. What do you want to do? Give them scythe and hammer. What do you mean? Anson smiled and did not speak. The wizarding world is too old, both locally and overseas, and a radical change requires a new conflict of interest. Once ordinary interests cannot dominate them, then only by using the method of their own interests being damaged will they realize more things, like freedom, like something more expensive than freedom, breathing. When the oppression was strong enough, the wizards needed something new to guide them, and it just so happened that he and Spencer studied it carefully. So Anson thought he was handing the scythe and hammer to the wizards. The Death Eaters and the Ministry of Magic were the ones to be harvested and beaten. It's something much more beautiful than a spell. Hela nodded. I don't understand, but it feels like you're doing something bad. 797 inches. Good and reasonable summary. What am I going to do when you go to class? Anson thought about it and released the remains of the destroyer in the king's sword, some of which had been refined and used by him, but the larger one had not yet moved. With a click, the cup in Hela's hand fell to the ground. Odin's Pegasus will do a front flip. You robbed Odin? This is destroyer armor. Anson said how Thor generously handled the destroyer armor at the beginning, and Thor obviously did not know how powerful the destroyer armor was, but Hela knows. This is the armor that Odin specially created to deal with the celestial god group, and in theory, it is very powerful. It's a pity that it has already been ruined. Ha, Odin still wants to give the throne to that idiot. Sooner or later he will ruin Asgard. Anson shook his head. I'm planning to build a magic tower in the wizarding world. You can go and help me with something. Maybe in a few months you can also do it. Oh? Hela wiped her hair. Killing? I love it. But what is this magic tower? You can think of it as an alternative kind of destroyer armor, but it's special. Once the magic tower is built, then Anson should be able to completely free his hands and feet to push the world by force. Chapter 143 King's Cross Station. Watching some little wizards get on the train under the guidance of their parents, Anson found that he had been in this world for the 3rd year. This year, he will also be 13 years old. It is said that the child in Europe and the United States is fast. He is 1 meter 7, perhaps because of the engraving of the rules of the dragon. Anson's body is strengthening all the time. Strength, speed, endurance, etc. And to reach the limit of the theory, that is, the dragon level is estimated according to his calculations. 5 years. This is still in the case of its own full magic. To put it bluntly, it needs the continuous stimulation of magic. So, how should the wizard's body improve after reaching the limit? At least now there are no known magical beasts in the wizarding world that extract objects that strengthen the rules better than dragons. Take your time. I entered a private room and looked at it with a book. It was about the direction of rune and loon runes, which was the core of the wizarding world. Long outside the sound of the train clattering wheels, the door of the compartment was knocked open. Hermione walked in with some snacks and followed Dilico. How did the two of them get together? Anson. You guys are? It's nothing. It's just that I want to ask you some questions. Anson smiled. Then I'm afraid this snack is not enough. You know, there are not many opportunities to consult a first-class Merlin medal winner. Dilico shrugged. We are classmates and friends. We should be able to discount. Yes, Anson, aren't you the favorite discount? Ha ha ha. Well, we have a point. When Dilico heard this, he pulled out a newspaper that showed a report of the escape of Azkaban prisoners, and on the front page was the person who had been talking about it lately. Sirius Black. So? Hermione muttered a few times without saying anything. Dilico? She thinks Sirius' escape might have something to do with Harry. No, they're embarrassed to come. I see. Two useless men always have self-respect. What do you want to know? Be specific. Hermione, is this guy coming for Harry? They should have seen it already. What? Anson put the newspaper down. Don't worry. He is Harry's godfather and will not hurt Harry. Is there any problem? Yes. Hurriedly pulled out a book from his package. Well, he was added the Traceless Stretching Charm, and he was extremely talented, and he was only 3 years old. If he remembers correctly, last year these two guys used their report cards to yin and yang themselves. Runevin? Hermione nodded. Good. This year we can choose elective courses. I am very interested in Runevin. Anson, what do you think is the essence of Runevin? A magical language closest to the core of magic. Anson continued. If we really want to give it a figurative explanation, it is the language that is closest to the essence of magic, and we can make alchemical products in Runevin. As far as I know, all alchemical artifacts and magical items are crafted from Runevin. Dilico, isn't it okay with modern languages? Yes, but the effect is very weak, and I don't know the specific reason. Click. Thundered. A thunderstorm. Heavy rain poured down, crackling on the window of the train. Meow. Grunt screamed uneasily, climbed onto Anson's lap and slept beautifully. And through Runevin you can also understand the nature of magic more directly. How does it work? What does it do? Etc. It's hours at a time. That's right. Hogwarts is that far away. Train, dislike me for being slow? You are high. You are amazing. On the way, Anson raised his head during the explanation for the two, and the two looked at each other, and they also found that something was wrong. The temperature seems to be getting colder. Bang. With a crunch, the train stopped in the heavy rain. Anson turned to look at Hermione. Have you ever learned the Patronus charm? It's a very simple spell, and it's magical. Hermione, what are you talking about? No, Dilico probably doesn't either. Closing parenthesis. Dilico? Is there anything bad? Very keen. Dilico. Yes, maybe we have more passengers on the train. This aura and magic fluctuation is only one thing in the entire wizarding world. The Dementor. It was supposed to be following the orders of the Ministry of Magic to capture Sirius and protect Hogwarts. Well, Harry was again used as bait. So, a dark shadow floated past the window, and at the same time there was a loud noise on the train, and white ice crystals clicked on the glass window. The breath they both exhaled could be seen turning white. Hermione grabbed Anson. Let's go. In the distance, outside the box where Harry and the others were, a monster in a black robe floating in the air opened the door. SHHH. This is Dementors? Dilico's body was already trembling a little. If it weren't for Anson here, I'm afraid he would have run away. When the three came over, they saw the Dementor lying on Harry's body and sucking heavily, and the Dementor's mouthparts were even more twisted and twisted. The white energy visible to the naked eye was extracted from Harry. Anson was curious. Anson, what are you doing? Quickly. Big mess. Dementors. Fly here. As soon as the crisp voice passed, the Dementor was pulled directly from Harry and fell into Anson's palm. Well, icy cold. Unlike normal animals, this thing is both real and illusory, and it's very weird. However, at present, there seems to be no power in the wizarding world that can directly and completely kill the Dementors. However, The next second, something happened that surprised Dilico and Professor Lupin, who came out of the box. The Dementor fell into Anson's hands, and naturally instinctively struggled to resist, but at this moment the Dementors in Anson's hands were full of red flames, and the Dementors twisted and could not escape from Anson's hands. Even the Dementors outside the train did not dare to come closer. Indenture? Yes, since Zhao Qianhao has asked Filch to bring it to the Dementor leader, there is a clause in the contract that the Dementor must not hurt Anson in any form. Now, it is being eaten back by the power of the contract. You killed it? Ron stared at Anson with, pure and without a trace of impurities. The Dementor disappeared as if it had never appeared. It's crazy. I'm afraid this is the only Dementor known to the wizard to have been killed, right? Lupin looked at Anson, although he had not been active in the wizarding world for a long time. But Anson's reputation had been heard. Dumbledo specifically reminded him to pay attention to Anson. Moreover, it seems that this person from the Pendra family has a hostility to werewolves, and many of the werewolves he knows disappeared for no reason, and some people suspect that Anson did it. Anson clapped his hands. Loud voice, leave. The Dementors outside the train heard Anson's voice and disappeared like rats. Chapter 144 Very Powerful Magic. Mr. Pendra, I am. Hello Professor Lupin, or should I call you Your Excellency Moonface? Lupin paused, and Anson knew that he was not surprised. After all, almost the entire native wizarding world was now in the hands of the Pendra family. One of the three wizards works for the Pendra family, and it is not difficult to find out his origin under such a large degree of wizard integration. But the problem is that the title of Moonface should not come out of Anson's mouth. Prove that he knows why he came to Hogwarts to be a professor. Stretch out your hand and gesture. Sit together. Of course, I'm also curious about the new defense against the dark arts professor. Hermione looked at each other. The defense against the dark arts professor? Which unlucky bastard is his turn again this year? After taking his seat, except for Harry, who had been sucked by the Dementors and slumped to the side and nibbling on the chocolate Lupin had given him, everyone's eyes were aimed at Lupin in unison. Or the new hapless eggs. Ron couldn't help but ask, Professor Lupin, were you also from Gryffindor before? Why do you ask that? What he means is that everyone knows about the defense against the dark arts class. After all, there is the curse of the Dark Lord, isn't it? Lupin smiled and shook his head. It's not an exaggeration like 643, otherwise Professor Dumbledo would have made a move, wouldn't I? But I'm indeed a Gryffindor. Anson raised his thumb. Very courageous. The Dark Lord's curse does exist, and even Dumbledo can't remove it. As for why, this comes to Hogwarts itself, which is a large magical item. You read that right. Hogwarts itself is not simple. Mr. Pendra, I have a question that I am curious about, and I wonder if you can give me an answer. Please say. I heard that many werewolves have disappeared for no reason since last year, and in fact many of them are innocent, aren't they? Because I am stronger, what I say is the truth. Is innocent sacrifice okay? Anson spread out his hand. I don't know if the professor has heard such a sentence. Dignity is only above the magic wand, and the truth is only within the scope of the spell. Hiss. Why is there a sense of overt destruction and impulsiveness? Very wise. But seems to advocate the use of force. I don't know who said it. It won't be Mr. Pendra himself. Hermione shook her head. It's not that the Adba is taught. Anson's words come from a high-ranking member of the Mole world. But Anson modified the object inside. Moles? How is he now? Anson raised his eyebrows. At least he did what he wanted to do. In this way, the werewolf may have died unjustly. The professor is very wise. I also think so. If the professor has the whereabouts of the werewolf, he may be able to report it to the Pendra family, although we don't say it explicitly. But there will be some financial compensation. Stood up and saluted slightly and walked out. Lupin was silent. This is a powerful man, and I don't know why Professor Dumbledo has been watching him grow to this point. However, he never got to know Dumbledore seriously. After all, Lupin's title is not great. Dilico, although I don't know what you're talking about, I think Anson's words just now are really good. Ron answered. Domineering? Yes, that's the word, and many of the words on the Anson picture released by Pendra this year seem to have this effect. Every sentence seemed to make the wizards feel that their blood was boiling. Every word between the lines is telling the wizard that you can get more. Very guided. Lupin looked up. Have you ever thought that if power is the truth, but most wizards are ordinary, and many people don't even know a few spells, how should they deal with themselves in such an environment? In his view, Anson's words are simply declaring his naked capital truth, which is plunder, the beginning of exploitation. Dilico held his head high. Professor, the world is fair. Since I am stronger than you, why can't I enjoy more? How do you ask someone who gives more than you to live on the same conditions as you? You know I didn't mean that. Maybe I overthought it. At the end of the sorting house, when Dumbledore introduced Hagrid as the professor of the new Fantastic Beasts Protection class, the little lions at the Gryffindor table cheered and applauded on the stools. Emotional, Professor McGonagall kicked Hagrid's motionless figure sitting on the platform. He quickly hit the table and stood up and raised his hand. Obviously he was also extremely happy. The applause disappeared. Professor McGonagall kicked Hagrid again in disgust before he reluctantly sat down. Muttered, Professor McGonagall, Our good reminder is not like this. Novels. Go on fellow closing parenthesis. The older cat lady doesn't care about this. HMPH. I haven't seen such a humble student as you. Laboratory on the edge of the Forbidden Forest. Anson released the drawings that had been prepared long ago, and Hela was brought in by Hall. It looks like it's nice. What's the use of it? The magic tower, which combines the roles of attack, defense, research, and auxiliary wizards into one, is very powerful. As for how powerful Anson is, it is not good to say. Anyway, when I found it from the Pendra family collection, there was only one explanation: destroy everything. Create everything, huh? It seems that a large number of Loon runes are used here. Hela blurted out. You know? I don't know. Our abilities are all innate or endowed, and the efficiency of learning by ourselves like this is too low, which is not in line with the character of the god domain. Okay, Hela continued, but I can understand part of it. Maybe it does have good power when built. You plan to build it with airy metal? And it. A pile of wood was released. World Tree? Oh, one-eyed Odin, my king, you are so daring. Come to the location granted by Dumbledo, deep in the Forbidden Forest. The long stick-like wand slammed into the ground. Thunderbolt explosion. Thundered. Spell rays pass by. The ground topples. Trees fall to pieces, and Peter Pettigrew can blow up a mall street with a thunderbolt explosion. Anson's power now is not bad. The foundation is laid. Then use the levitation charm and the cutting spell to remove the unwanted parts, and then the core part. Almost all of the magic tower needs to be inscribed with a large number of runes such as Niven and Loon, which are the core of the magic tower. Although most of him didn't know what these characters meant, he could only guess a certain function, which was enough for Anson to be excited. Even he found the same function as the Ravenclaw golden crown in the role of the magic tower. Let me ask, once such a tower appears, is it subversive for the promotion of wizards? Ravenclaw's golden crown can only be used by one person. Chapter 145. Does anyone else watch? For more than half a month, Anson and Hela finally completed the main body of the magic tower. Basically used most of the alu metal and some vibranium materials. This thing is really impossible for ordinary people to make. Hela looked at it magically, and carefully felt that the person on the magic tower seemed to have a blessing, and according to her ability, the magic tower would increase its power by at least 3 times. Is it simple? It's just terrifying. The little hand put on the crook of Anson's arm. My king, people will also build a magic tower in the future. This thing should be able to build a palace, right? Anson raised an eyebrow. Very eye-catching. Not only the palace, the shape of what it can be anything. The problem is that the material is difficult to engage. Vibranium or anything else. Alu metal is only unique to Asgard, and the world tree can only be cut secretly. Of course, this may be considered a high quality, and the materials needed in the collection are not these. But then the effect will be greatly reduced. It's not a problem if you provide materials. Of course, when I hit Asgard, you will help me transform the palace. I am very irritated to see the golden dome earlier. Anson walked to the window, which was the 5th floor of the magic tower, and he could see part of the Forbidden Forest. Except for your weapons. A huge beam of light flew towards the Forbidden Forest, booming. A huge explosion came. An empty passage appeared in the Forbidden Forest, visible to the naked eye, and a huge deep pit appeared at the end. Hiss. It's very powerful. What if it's the magic tower's own attack? On top of the magic tower is a specially polished crystal stone that glows in the sunlight. Anson activated slightly, and the rune even that had already been inscribed outside the magic tower glowed with lights, as if they were running each other at the same time. The crystal at the top emitted a burst of energy towards Anson's attention. Boom. Well, the effect is better than that of the average adult wizard. But it definitely did not reach the limit of the magic tower. After all, if it was just like this, it would really be impossible to build such a tower. The two are still being studied. There was a sound of crackling in the distance of the Forbidden Forest, and I looked at it. A lot of spiders. Anson heard this and looked. 8-eyed spider? This is supposed to be the descendant of the spider that Hagrid kept in the Forbidden Forest, and it seems that their experiment just now affected them. But directly activate the magic tower auto attack. Energy seems to be absorbed directly from nature. It's interesting. Hey, the attack is good, Hela commented. Although such an attack for her, at least in its heyday, is tickling. But it should be good in this world. The spell light fell like rain, and none of the 8-eyed spiders could get close to the magic tower within 10 meters. Accurate and powerful. If it weren't for a loud roar from the Forbidden Forest later, the number of these 8-eyed spiders would have decreased sharply. Anson was slightly disappointed. If there is a certain amount of energy replenishment instead of absorbing mana from nature on its own, the power of the magic tower should be much stronger than it is now. In his plan, anyway, there were also considerations in this regard, so he simply went directly to Dumbledo. What? How do you want the Philosopher's Stone to be made? Dumbledo looked at Anson incredulously. Even the body stood up and did not find it. It's not that I don't understand you, Anson. You seem to be only 13 years old. You don't need to use the Philosopher's Stone to extend your life. You also have wealth that wizards can't have, and turning stones into gold shouldn't be what you need. Anson did not answer his words directly. Instead, he He looked at the magic robe on Dumbledo's body. How does this magic robe professor feel about using it? A magical item that subverted the wizard's alchemy journey. It is said that there is a better one in the Pendra family. Yes, a magic robe with added materials that can withstand most physical damage and can activate the armor talisman on its own. Dumbledo nodded. It is indeed extremely good, but what does this have to do with the method you need to make the Philosopher's Stone? Professor, if there is such an alchemy product, such as one that can fly and patrol by itself, recognize enemy attacks and even protect wizards by itself, what do you think? It can't be. Anson, everything is possible, isn't it, Professor? The night bus in the wizarding world. The transformation of mull items researched by Mr. Weasley, everything is working in this direction, and even they have already achieved results. If it were not for the restrictions of the Ministry of Magic, perhaps the wizarding world would already be a different world now. How fast is the night bus? Why can a wizard know when he raises his wand on the side of the street? Zero ask for flowers. Why does it know where to go and how to get there? At least a lot of spells are involved here. Energy absorption, stealth, automatic identification and so on. Closing parenthesis. The transformation of the Weasley car has already been mentioned. What would it look like if it were applied to weapons and wizard protective equipment? It is true that Anson now has a way to allow magical items to absorb magic from nature on their own, but this is too inefficient after all. So, the Philosopher's Stone entered Anson's consideration. The Philosopher's Stone is like Stark's arc reactor, and with the Philosopher's Stone, it is very simple for Anson to build a magic armor. This is progress. Obviously, Dumbledo did not want to see this kind of progress, and even put the scale of the entire wizarding world to seem to be the same perception. After all, the improvement of technology means the liberation of productivity. This would really threaten the wizards themselves. Understandable. But can't we just ignore the future development in order to maintain the status quo? I understand what you mean, but the process of making the Philosopher's Stone is evil. Anson, I don't want you to come this far. Besides, I don't know how to make the Philosopher's Stone. I might be able to write a letter for you to recommend to my old friend, you know. Anson smiled. So, what does the trading professor need this time? Why does it have to be a deal? Anson, I would rather be friends with you. Very humorous joke, Professor. You know that I will not be the kind of person you want me to be. Justice and greatness come at a great price. I remember the professor once saying that it is easy to choose or the right one, full of philosophy. Dang, Bully was dumbfounded. So you choose the easy one? It's the least loss for me, and the easy choice doesn't necessarily mean it's evil. Seeing that he was still silent, Anson simply took out something from the king's sword. A ring. This is? Dumbledo stood up. This is a Horcrux. Well, gaunt ring. But I can't give it to the professor now. I need something on top. Both, the resurrection stone. With this, Anson already has 2 of the 3 holy weapons of death in his hand, which is almost the old wand in Dumbledo's hand. Chapter 146. Obviously, Dumbledo already had a magic scare for Horcruxes, or rather, he already had a particularly deep magic for Voldemort. Even the resurrection stone above has a somewhat unpleasant feeling. The only concept of the resurrection stone may be that it can resurrect people, but in fact it cannot. To be precise, it allows the holder to see the soul he wants to see. Interesting. It seems to allow the holder to see the soul of a dead person, which is extremely mysterious for Anson. The invisible and unknown nature of the soul is of great value for study. Where are they? And where did it go? And so on. In the magic tower, Anson wears the golden crown of Ravnica and studies the gaunt ring little by little. Hela said bluntly, there seems to be a defense mechanism on this. It should be specially arranged by someone. It seems it's a curse. The vision is very good. Do you have a way to lift the curse above? 063. If only my divine power had not been sealed by Odin, but now, the only thing she can use is probably the strength of her body, and she can't use other abilities, even the authority she dominates. What is it like to be a goddess of death and not be in control of death? After thinking about it, Anson still dealt with the gaunt ring the way they originally handled Horcruxes. Gather a large number of wizards to take turns using the death charm. Of course, he can also let an unlucky ghost wear this ring, so that after the curse spreads to a person's body, his magic and soul will be absorbed by the Horcrux. Thus the curse disappears. But in this way, the remnant soul of Voldemort in the Horcrux will also awaken, and it just so happens that now Voldemort's remnant soul Anson does not want to see another one. So there is really only one choice. The second wizard legion came to the depths of the Forbidden Forest and took turns using the death spell on the Ring of Gaunt. Anson went to class. Ladies and gentlemen, divination is a mysterious and fascinating course, and you can imagine how interesting it is to be able to predict many things that will happen in the future. Professor Trelawney seemed to enjoy the moment. That's wonderful, isn't it? Wizards can completely avoid some bad things that don't have to happen. And now, let's start today's lesson. Divination. At the end, Professor Trelawney pretended to prophesy several, and according to Hermione, this guy would divinate that several students would die tragically every year. As a result, people are alive and well. But Anson still saw something. For example, Harry's tea leaves clearly formed the appearance of a black dog, which indicates death and darkness, but alludes to Professor Lupin's image of Animagus. And in Ron's teacup, The tea leaves also show some of the future scenes in the original play. Very interesting. Until here with Hermione, there was nothing. Professor Trelawney glanced at Hermione's teacup and exaggerated Merlin's front teeth. It's a dark harbinger of your tragic death. Hermione stood up directly, swept down the teacup with a click, and walked away with an ugly face. Before leaving, he also left a sentence, "Stupid divination lesson." Professor Trelawney spread out her hands. She didn't seem to have said anything wrong, right? You haven't heard my prediction of the worst person. What an impatient little wizard. For Anson, divination prophecy is magical and mysterious. Mainly, he doesn't have that talent. A month later, Magic Tower. Anson looked at the harmless gaunt ring, and inside Voldemort's soul fragment had been completely killed, without a trace of Horcrux fluctuations. Instead, there is a unique magic rule circulating, a rule that Anson doesn't usually see. It seems to have a strong smell of death. When the meaning of this rule was written down in the form of a rune, Hela also wrote it down. This is death? No, there is still the meaning of the revenant. Has this world research reached this point? What's wrong? Nothing, my king. I am now beginning to believe what you said about the fact that there are higher powers in this world. Studying death, and even the soul, is not something anyone can afford. But it seems that this rule is only just touching the brink of death. Anson didn't care. Under the true eyes, the gaunt ring and the invisibility cloak both seem to have the same kind of fluctuations, which means that they really come from the same alchemical technique. What if 3 deathly hallows are gathered? What happens? Anson had imagined that the 3 hallows of death should be the key to opening a certain ruin. Enamellance. Anson brought not only the second wizard legion this time, but also Hela and Meta-Eater Gu. Especially Gu. He has a whole card in Anson's hand. If it is not to deal with Nielum, Anson basically will not use Gu 0. Once it is dispatched, the result should not be what Anson wants to see. Novels. Just go to Felu closing parenthesis on the outskirts. A certain villa. With a wave of Anson's hand, the second wizard legion had already begun to arrange the forbidden magic array and the anti-phantom transfiguration charm, as well as some other spells. Everything is for Nielum, who is completely trapped inside. He was too important to Anson. Is he that important? Hela was puzzled. According to Anson's plan, once you completely control the wizarding world, what kind of things you want? Why bother with a wizard? Anson nodded heavily. He is known as the ancestor of alchemy, and although I don't believe it, he must have mastered alchemy far beyond the current wizarding world, and he has an important role in the wizarding world. If Nicomeller dies, it will mean the loss of the wizarding world. So it was not a last resort. Anson still did not want to see Nialam's death. It's so pointless. Young master, it's arranged. The lights around the wand were all extinguished. Itself in the mole living area, where there should be no Death Eaters active. You're waiting outside. Holding Gu, followed by Hela knocking on Nicola's door. Bang bang bang. The room was instantly lit up. Here it is. With a bubbling, an old face came into view, white hair 0.8 and a slightly squirmish body, but those eyes were extremely alert. Good evening, Mr. Nialam. Pendra greetings you. Pendra? Ah, Dumbledore told me about you. And he also sent me a letter telling me that you would come over recently, but I didn't expect such a big movement. Anson said calmly, it's just some insurance measures, you know. It's not quite here lately. Nasty Death Eaters, kids play day by day. Please. Seat complete. Nicola Flamel waved as the cups in the kitchen were automatically filled with coffee and sugar cubes, and several people flew in front of them. Please, then, you're here for the Philosopher's Stone? I think Professor Dumbledo has already explained my intentions to you. This is a matter that benefits the wizarding world. What do you think? Nialam was silent. Chapter 147. His silence was not a good thing for Anson. People who have lived for a long time always have such and such considerations, especially Anson's past behaviors are not good. Yazi. At least in the eyes of traditional wizards, Anson is really not a good person. Indeed, Dumbledo told me what you think, and the future you painted is indeed worth looking forward to, but I need to consider more things. You know. Nick Miller paused and continued, how can I guarantee you won't use it for anything else? What does the Philosopher's Stone mean? Turning stones into gold is simple, and its main role is to make countless substances that can live forever. This is also the reason why the Nickmailers were able to live more than 600 years. If he wants to continue to live, he can do it. As for what the limit is, I don't know. It should depend on whether Nick Meller's body can withstand the ravages of time. His current body is as fragile as a dead grass. Any power comes at a price, and it always has been. We can sign a contract. Nick Meller smiled. You don't have to play these careful eyes with me. Once I die, the contract's restraint on you will not be 04, and you should have many ways to kill me. Even like Dumbledo, there is a way to avoid the constraints of the contract. Anson frowned. No more talking? Hela looked up with a smile, and even the purring on her knees opened the blade on her paws. The atmosphere suddenly froze. Nick smiled. Young little wizard, I'm afraid death won't scare me. No, sir, I think everyone has his weaknesses, and if you find the right weaknesses, everyone should give in. Of course, I call it compromise. I have? Yes, sir, you also have. The longer you live, the more things you will fall in love with. but you are a great person, and I don't want to use such means against you." And took the resurrection stone. Death isn't really all dissipated, is it? For wizards, the soul is also a mysterious trait, which can be controlled by wizards. For moles, a person is dead, but for wizards, death is just another kind of existence. It can still be hurt. I didn't expect you to have already touched on this level, admittedly. But if that's the case, I'm afraid I still can't give you the method of making the Philosopher's Stone. Very calm, Anson looks up to him a little. Is there really a wizard who is not afraid of death? No way. If Nicola Flamel was really not afraid of death, he would not use the Philosopher's Stone to live forever, and the course of more than 600 years is not fake. Nick suddenly paled. He felt that his magic seemed to be slowly decreasing. Forbidden magic spell? Somewhat interesting, but not enough. Hundreds of years have increased not only his age, but also magic. Looking at him, he was still silent. Anson couldn't help but grow his head for a while. Why did he force him to be a villain one by one? Although he likes the identity of the villain. Sir, just say it bluntly. How do you need to agree? Nick stared straight at Anson and suddenly laughed. Once the method of making the Philosopher's Stone is in your hands, you will definitely make it in a big way. This is a very evil thing, child. I'm afraid it is not what you want. Can you make someone else's? Can't? You made it and it is not considered evil, even if others are, and I'm not taking precedence. We can trade. Deal? Yes, sir. What can compare to the Philosopher's Stone? Anson was silent. Very little indeed. That's why I asked you to make an offer. What else do you think is worth trading for an old man who has lived for hundreds of years? Anson stood up. Really a stubborn old man, that. Don't blame me. Nick smiled leisurely with his wand in his hand. Child, it's not a good choice to use magic in the face of a wizard who has lived for hundreds of years. No, sir. Have you heard what power transcends mortals is? Well, the reality gem hanging from Anson's chest suddenly lit up, and Hela smiled. Anson said in a deep voice, all of this person's magic will be invalid. Next second, Nicola stood up sharply and clicked, his bones breaking from too much force. But it is difficult to hide his shocked face. What is it? Why does my spell fail? Closing parenthesis. I don't know what strength you have to fight me, sir, but I have a power that you cannot understand. The second gemstone on the necklace is giving off a yellow glow and is a gemstone for the mind. Sir, please don't make it difficult for me. Still silent, Anson sighed and pointed his wand at him. The energy of the mind gem had spread over, and Nicolim's eyes instantly darkened, waiting until it returned to normal. He has already obeyed Anson's words. Hela, it's good to use them early. With them no one in this world should be your opponent. Did you not find the point? What do you mean? The Infinity Stones are able to exert their abilities here, which means that this dimension is still very closely related to the universe we live in. Even Marvel may be under the same system. This is something that Anson does not want to see. But the Wizarding world and the Marvel world may already belong to the scope of the multiverse. This fact cannot be changed. Come man. Young master, a wizard walked in immediately. Find, copy everything about books for me. Don't let go of any 553 corner. Understood. And he took Nicolim to the side and asked him to dictate how to make the Philosopher's Stone. Even Hela couldn't help but frown after hearing this. Evil. Making a Philosopher's Stone does require the use of people and souls, and it is best to make it with wizards with magical powers, and the process is extremely cruel and beyond the bottom line. But the principle is not complicated. Strictly speaking, the Philosopher's Stone still replenishes itself by absorbing magic from nature. But because it is a relationship created by wizards and wizards' souls, it can store extremely large amounts of mana and recover itself faster than normal magic items absorb. Mana is a qualified magic storage item. It is also limited to mana storage. If using the Philosopher's Stone for life extension or immortality is obviously not a wise choice, just look at Nick Flamel. The bones are as brittle as dead wood, and they break when touched. A wizard who can't fight melee is not a good wizard. Stripped of Nielami's alchemy, Anson has a thorough understanding of how many things an alchemy master can have. And it can be said that once the things in his memory are put in the wizarding world, you can open a few courses separately for wizards to learn. It's so terrifying. However, he did not disclose the alchemy he had studied. Oh, rotten traditional wizarding means. Chapter 148. During the process, Anson and Hela were relatively silent. Mainly Anson's words. This should belong to one of the multiverses of the Marvel Universe. At least this dimension is related to the Marvel Universe. Otherwise, it is unlikely that the Infinity Stones will be able to continue to perform their original functions. This also means that others may be able to enter this dimension. It made Anson's heart more and more anxious. Hela looked up at him. My king, I think it is important that you can delve into why you became a demon god in this dimension. I want to too. But I can't figure it out. How did you come to this world? Anson shook violently. Yes, how did he not think of this? At first, he thought that it was because of the relationship between the magic rules that Yi and others felt that he was a demon god of a certain dimension. After all, the existence of magic rules was indeed magical, but never thought about it. Sword of the King. This is something that allows him to enter the wizarding world. The fingers rubbed the king's sword, and it was strange that the true eye could not see that there was any magic rule above. This is unreasonable. Fantastic animals, magical items, wizards, and even people have unique rules that can be discovered by the true eye, which is the unique core of existence given by the universe. Then why doesn't Sword of Kings have one? Swish from the ring to a dark grey sword, the simple shape and a slightly blunt-looking blade. I don't know which child's handiwork, but Anson knew it was sharp. What is it? The Sword of the King? Enough reason for me to enter the wizarding world. Anson watched carefully. There should be something else that I didn't notice. Thought about it, and waved a wizard. Try it and see if you can't use it. The wizard took it and then shook his head. Young master, you can't. Only you can. Then, the only difference between himself and that wizard is the bloodline of the Pendra family. The corners of the mouth twitched, dripping, blood, confession, Lord. Don't mess around. After thinking about it, I still looked towards the palm of my hand. His finger clanged, trying to squeeze out a drop of blood and fall on it. As soon as the Sword of the King touched Anson's blood, it was instantly absorbed clean. It seems like there is drama. A red pattern appeared on the King's sword, and the magic power in the guide Anson's body fluctuated, uncontrolled. The huge mana fluctuations even lifted the contents of the house in the air, just like the magic riot of the little wizard. Hela suddenly said, the aura of the dimensional demon god on your body has become more and more intense. It seems that you have found the right way. The question is, what's the use? In other words, King Arthur can't give anything left behind. As for these bells and whistles, young master, it's all transcribed. Well, withdraw. Return Nicola Flamel to normal with the infinity stones. Bow slightly. Thank you for your generosity. Nialame held the spell aloft, but he couldn't use a spell until Anson disappeared. Sigh. That kind of power is far beyond my own understanding. In Azkaban, Filch asked the Dementors to bring some death row inmates, most of them from the Rosier family. It's a good use. Making the Philosopher's Stone requires some specific instruments, even a long time. The 7 wizards were fixed to a shelf, muddled, with various wires attached to them, hollow inside. A little bit of energy visible to the naked eye is extracted from the wizard's body and poured into the center by the line, forming the appearance of a Philosopher's Stone. Little by little, Filch didn't care about the wizards who screamed from time to time. Young master, this thing? It seems that a lot of wizards will be needed in the future. Well, do it secretly. At least this kind of thing can't be revealed until I find a way to improve the Philosopher's Stone. Understood. Return to the magic tower. Hey, you want to make a warframe? Hela knew what it was when she saw Anson drawing drawings. Closing parenthesis. Odin also has one. Anson nodded. Try it. You may not really do it. The wizard followed the path of an agile mage, and despite his appearance, the wizards under his command inscribed the dragon rules and improved in the flesh. But this does not mean that they have to give up the wizard's most powerful means, the spell. Melee combat is nothing more than a matter of preparedness. What Anson really wants to do is to promote the wizard's alchemical technology. Only the popularization of a large number of magical items and alchemy items can completely change the uneven level of force in the wizarding world. This is the best for the Pendra family. After all, they have close to 100,000 wizards under their hands. Looking at individual abilities alone, it really makes a world of difference. There are also limitations of talent. Some people are suitable for the development of dark wizards, and some people can't even release black magic. Can such manpower really form a deterrent force? Unlikely. Dragon skin magic robe defense, through spell attacks. What wizards lack the most now is actually such a thing as mobility. Quirrell froze. Young master, isn't there a flying broom and a phantom transfiguration? Phantom transfiguration may cause splitting phenomena, and not everyone can learn it. But if I study and understand the rules of phantom transfiguration, then add it to the alchemy product, then it doesn't hurt. This means that perhaps every wizard can perform phantom transfiguration to avoid the danger of splitting and fight. Think of the battle that Toldang once fought with Grindelwald, and the phantom transfiguration dodged each other's spells like flashes. Once a wizard can't hit the other person with a spell, it's no different from fireworks. This method of warfare applies to other systems as well. He should need to consider a way to allow wizards to survive in the starry sky through alchemy products. And in the future, the Marvel world side must be more than just fighting on the ground. Difficult. 3 days later, it was claimed that Anson and Pendra had snatched all the alchemy from Nialame. Instantly caused an uproar. In particular, Xperton's School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, which was where Nicola Flamel studied, protested loudly, and for this, Death Eaters played a lot of role in it. Voldemort directly raised the banner of avenging Nialame, gained, and won the support of many Lanchan wizards. This is not the same as Anson's vision. This dog actually learned to pick up the banner of justice. In class, the little wizards looked at Anson's eyes with some other meaning. And, the little wizard of the Weasley family, Hermione quietly asked, did you really steal Nialame's knowledge? Yes. Hiss. Take a breath of cold air. This is the only remaining alchemy master who is still alive. How dare Anson? Miss Hermione, please repeat what I just said. Snape stood beside her. Hermione, Professor, the wisdom enhancer needs to first mash the scarab, the cut ginger root, and the bile of the oriental armadillo. Professor, this is learned in the 4th century. Snape shook his hand and walked away. Very well, sit down. Miss Hermione didn't follow the professor's instructions to learn in advance what she couldn't master. For this, Gryffindor deducted 1 point. Chapter 149. Just after returning to the lab, Quirrell was already waiting inside. Hagrid's Fantastic Beasts class Anson didn't attend, and to be honest, Hagrid probably didn't like him going to the class. After all, the magical beasts that died at the hands of Anson do not know how many. This is why the core of the magic rules will appear when fantastic beasts die. Hagrid knew. Even the professors at Hogwarts know a lot. What's wrong? The people you asked me to select are ready, and an alchemy legion will be reassigned from the original 9 wizard legions, which will be used specifically to make alchemy products. That's 10,000 people. And these wizards will not participate in combat or anything else, specializing in alchemy and making alchemical and magical items. It is both the scientific research department of wizards and the logistics department of wizards. Well, redistribute into a legion, improve the salary, and measure their benefits by the different degrees that individuals have. Specific, you study it. Quirrell nodded. Do you want to reallocate a place for them to use for specialized research institutes? No, let them come to the magic tower. No one should dare to mess around here. But you need to arrange the traceless stretching charm. Got it. The magic tower always has 10 floors, and if you arrange the traceless stretching charm, you can install several times more 273 wizards. Safety is also guaranteed, and even if you do magic research here, it will have the same effect as wearing the Ravenclaw golden crown. Be more focused as well as lucky. Similar to the effect of the elixir, except that the elixir has side effects after use. During the effective period, wizards will often do what they want like divine help, but once the effect of the medicine has passed, wizards will also encounter certain bad things. It's like a lucky drop. But the magic tower will not have such side effects, which is perfect for research. Office of the Principal. Dumbledo looked at a letter sent by Nialame and recorded all the experiences of his encounter with Anson in detail. Rubbed his forehead. Is it powerful again? The question is, what is your purpose in doing this, Anson? Grindelwald has failed. Voldemort is doomed because of you. How can you succeed? Magic tower. Anson looked at all the alchemy obtained from Nialame in detail, and there was a strange in the hugeness, which was not researched by Nialame himself. On the contrary, he also discovered the technology of his predecessors and inherited it. This shows that the existence of alchemy will have to go forward for a long time in his place. Think about it, goblins started crafting all kinds of magical items and alchemy items before they had a big war with wizards. Obviously, wizards should also have this technology. To Anson's surprise, Nialame suspected that the alchemy he had obtained was not researched by wizards, but rather possessed by some race. Specifics are unknown, but this has little to do with Anson. All he wants is alchemy itself. Over and over again, look carefully at all the alchemy that has been transcribed, and then organize them in the book through a sketch quill pen, which will be specially learned and used by the Alchemy Wizard Legion in the future. Alchemy is not static, though. Like a potion, Snape was able to research and improve his recipes from the old potion system, so he should be able to do the alchemy. Hall. The elf appeared in the twist. Young master, go and invite Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, in my name. Yes, young master. Knight. The Weasleys were confused when they received an invitation from the Pendra family, when they heard that Anson had obtained all of Nialame's alchemy. Arthur Weasley had already thought that this day would come sooner or later. When Anson invited him to develop alchemy products, he had a hunch, but he didn't expect this day to come so quickly. Moreover, there seems to be no choice. I had to come to Hogwarts to find Dumbledore. Do you think Anson is looking for you for the alchemy, acre, inherited by the Weasley family? Arthur nodded. Yes, Professor. We don't have anything else to worry about him. Molly sighed. In this way, it seems that it is also his intention that our family will work under him. The eldest son, the second son, and even Arthur, almost all work under the Pendra family estate and are well treated. Dumbledore looked at Arthur. So what do you think? Closing parenthesis. With Mr. Pendra's means, it seems impossible that we don't want to give them. You know his means. I consider myself no match for him, and I have a large son. However, it is not so easy to pass on my family. At least I need to protect my children. Molly interjected, so we hope that the professor can come with us, and everyone knows that Mr. Pendra still respects the professor. Dumbledore laughed. Esteemed? The little one doesn't respect him. It's all just a deal. Yes, that's what Anson said. He's like an unkind guy. Everything is carried out by trading, according to his way of living. It is the simplest and there is no need to be so troublesome. Indeed, once the transaction is carried out, it seems that Anson has never broken his word, and once it is promised, it will basically be done. Okay. After thinking about it, Old Deng still agreed to Arthur's request. Under the magic tower, Hall is already waiting here. The three of them looked up at the towering magic tower, especially the direct magic fluctuations above, and they thought it was alive. One Piece. Alchemy products. Arthur blurted out. Professor, Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, please, The young master has been waiting for a long time. As soon as they entered, there were densely packed wizards in the first layer conducting research in their respective areas, and countless materials were piled up. There is a separate magic elevator for wizards to go up and down all the way to the 9th floor. Excellent alchemy item, Anson, it's a miracle. Anson smiled. Is it okay, Professor, Mr. Weasley and Mrs. Weasley, do you have something to drink? Tea or coffee, and of course butterbeer. It seems that you are treated well here. Magic research is complex and dangerous, and these logistics naturally have to be matched, and I have always believed that win-win is true cooperation. Seat complete. Arthur still hasn't recovered from what he found in the magic tower. He could see much more than Molly and Dengbri, could absorb magic on his own, could attack, and seemed to give him a feeling of concentration after coming in. Merlin's big sneeze. How is this possible? Mr. Pendra, don't you know if you called us? Chapter 150. Anson put down a teapot. Then I'll say it bluntly, I want to exchange part of Nialamy's alchemy with Mr. Weasley for the alchemy of the Weasley family, depending on the difference between the two. If the alchemy of the Weasley family surpasses the alchemy heritage of Nialam, then I will give subsidies in other areas. Very easy to understand. But Arthur had no reason or reluctance. If nothing else, he was sure that the alchemy he had mastered was probably unique in the entire wizarding world. Neither can Nicola Flamel. Exclusive, is what can be inherited, isn't it? Once exchanged with Anson, it means that his alchemy knowledge here will no longer be unique, greatly reducing the value of the Weasley family. It also adds uncertainty to their family. So reluctantly, Anson saw his thoughts and did not force him. Did Mr. Weasley ever think about the question that Nialam mastered the alchemy was extremely large, and there were many things that he had not studied clearly. In addition, I can probably guess what aspect of the alchemy inheritance mastered by the Weasley family is, and it is indeed excellent. Suddenly, Anson paused. But presumably Sir knows, you will seem to be able to too, and I already have the finished product. Dragon skin magic robe. That's right, it's this thing. And the Weasley family's inheritance knowledge is exactly this, simply put, to give magic items one or more spells. For example, the later magical items made by George and Fred with iron armor spells. In the entire wizarding world, except for his family, no one dared to say that he could make such a magical item. Neither could Voldemort. Neither will the Dark Wizard in the alley overturned. Even if it could, at what cost? So those things are called black magic items, ominous, cursed. It is not allowed by the Ministry of Magic. But what did the Weasleys do? True magical items will not do any harm to wizards. Arthur paused, his mouth opening slightly. A little luck in my heart immediately disappeared without a trace. Indeed, he even had a dragon skin magic robe given by Anson on his hand, and he had studied the technology day and night. Nothing was found. It seems that it is preventing itself from researching. So he was sure that Anson's research in alchemy had been surpassed him. Dumbledo, Anson, just say it. It scares Arthur. Looking at it again, the couple was already pale. Anson, I'm sorry, but I'm used to trading with professors, so Mr. Weasley doesn't know what your intentions are. Dumbledo. Seeing that her husband did not speak, Molly couldn't help sighing. Mr. Pendra, I wonder what we can gain and what we will lose. Sorry, we're just ordinary wizards who can't think of that much. No, Mrs. Weasley, there are not many wizards in the entire wizarding world who can make me look up, but you are one. Dumbledo's eyes lit up. Molly is also a little confused. She is just a housewife. Don't look at a wizard, but the embarrassed Weasley family. If there is no Molly, I don't know how miserable it will be, especially her attitude towards Harry and the little wizards, and most of the children of the Weasley family were probably raised by her. Very good one. Which there are both responsibilities and responsibilities to the family, husband and children, and the bravery of bombing Bella to death in the original play for his daughter. Novels. Just go to Fellow closing parenthesis. What makes Anson most interesting is that her goodness is so clear. Thank you Mr. Pendra for your compliments. Anson waved his hand. No need for this, you can call me Anson, except for the wizards under me, my gold gallon, and my knowledge, we are no different. Dumbledo, very honest self-commentary. Anson, you are also a professor. And you are the greatest white wizard. Ah, if only there were less ridicule of the old man. Molly smiled rarely, and the tense atmosphere just now dissipated a lot. Arthur smiled wryly and shook his head. Mr. Pendra, it seems that we don't have any choice. If we don't exchange, I wonder what you will do. According to my plan, did you see those wizards under the magic tower when you came? There are 10,000 wizards who specialize in alchemy. In the future, there will be batches of alchemy products entering the wizarding world, and they can also innovate and research new alchemy techniques. Not only that, but we also plan to establish more complete departments for potions research, magic item research, charms research and other departments in the future. Everyone, the wizarding world will soon be different. Anson said solemnly, is it normal that the wizarding world has been passed down for so long and is still not much different from more than 1,000 years ago? In my opinion, not only is it abnormal, but wizards are wasting our talents. We should be able to enjoy more, and so are our descendants. Hall stood aside and clapped his hands. his eyes shining. He knew that his young master must be a greater wizard than Professor Dumbledo, and he had always been like this. You can imagine whether one person can study faster or 10,000 or more wizards study faster. Arthur made a bitter face. So, whether I exchange it or not, after a certain period of time, these things inherited by my family will be studied. This is certain. The torrent of history will not stop because of whom, and anyone who stands in its way will be crushed. Dumbledo, Anson, what are you then? If a torrent has formed within the wizarding world, Professor, I'm the one who made the wizarding world form a torrent. Smiling slightly. All three of them were shocked by Anson's words. Indeed, everything Anson did now caused huge waves in the wizarding world. There are good and bad, but at least now the wizarding world has indeed changed, and it is changing for the better. You should go to the Ministry, Dumbledo lamented. Anson shook his head. The Ministry of Magic is still too old. According to my opinion, it should not be like this. He didn't say much, and with old Deng's wisdom, he was probably already thinking about how to deal with him. Arthur, we chose to exchange, but I have a few conditions that I hope Mr. Pendra will agree to. I can exchange my family's alchemy for knowledge, but I need to give my sons and daughters that opportunity to inscribe the rules of magic, as well as the latest dragon skin magic robe. I can see the difference. The new and old dragon skin magic robe is not a level thing. In addition, I want to join the Pendra family. I am very talented in alchemy, and so are my sons. It's very decisive. Welcome, Mr. Arthur and Mr. Weasley. You will not regret today's decision.